guys, welcome to another episode of the Ali Show, and today we have another very special guest, Mr. I'm gonna say this right, so it's Theophile Poizat, but we can call you Theo. We should just take the Theo to make it a little bit easy for all of us.
Yeah, that's right. We've
But,
got lots of different names here in New Zealand, man.
and you know, again, like what we said before, like I just don't like to butcher people's names, so I always ask, and you want to get that right.
Dude, I greatly
Just
appreciate
a
that.
little bit of respect there, Theo, anyway, before we get into any of it, how are you today, man?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm feeling pretty good. Recharged. Did kind of what I needed to this morning, and had a bit of a sauna. Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you.
Bro, it's we were just talking about the sauna as well earlier. There's so many positive benefits of using the sauna and using it as a form of recovery. How often do you try to get in the sauna? Bro, not as much as we like.
Nowhere near as much as we all should, but that comes with like any strategy that we know is good for us, right? But like if you can put little bits in, it's good. If I can get in there at least every month or a couple times a month, like I'm always going to feel a bit better. And like the more I learn from other people about the benefits of it, the more that when I do it, I'm receptive to those benefits. And I'm like, okay, this is a cool strategy that I probably should add to my life more often.
The thing with the sauna though, like, is there a specific amount of time and like the temperature? I've been hearing different thoughts about this.
Yeah, there's a few bits of study. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's really good at breaking this down. If anyone's interested in this, the Found My Fitness page, she discusses the protocols that have been done that have shown the benefits in terms of releasing the anti-inflammatory compounds, there's heat shock proteins, huge increases in human growth hormone. The temperature, honestly, I forget half the time because it's Fahrenheit and things like that. And for example, because I don't have like a personal sauna at home, I go to like the Mount Albert Aquatic Centre. I'll just go with whatever temperature's there. You got to think of it as like it's a stressor. So just have it as hot as you can handle without like burning out, but still like stressing and challenging the system. So for some people that if they're not accustomed to heat stress, that's going to be quite low. So there is a temperature that the studies have done to show these benefits. I don't know what that is. Yeah. But it's just like, just get in heat and stress the system. In terms of time intervals, in shock. Yeah, bro. Well, not shock, right? Shock is when you've probably overreached too much on that stressor.
But well, then again, it like you said, it depends. Different people have different.
For sure.
Yeah. So for some, like that's the thing as well. When you go in the sauna, sometimes you look at a few people, you look at their faces, right? Yeah. Some people are like real comfortable, and some people are like uneasy, and they. And
people come in for like 2 minutes and then bugger off. And it's like you're not going to get much of a stimulus for 2 minutes. That's like going up to a bar at like you're going to try to get better at your squats or grow your legs. You lift the bar 4 times and then walk away. Like you're not going to get enough of a stimulus for adaptation at that level. So some of the studies have done 20-minute sessions, and I know the one that's had like a huge increase. I should have brought my diary with all my notes in it, but 2 20-minute sessions. So you have a little break in between. So I just did 20 minutes this morning, and that works for me. And if I'm really feeling brave and I'm not too taxed on my nervous system, I'll go back in and do another little round. But 20 minutes, and I'm just trying to control the breathing. And when the inside voice is telling you it's getting really hot, you just try and like calm the heart rate and come back down. Because I'll do movements in there too. I'll play with my joints.
That's crazy. Talking about that, like you have that voice in your head, that tells you, oh man, that's
it's always there.
That's enough. Get out now. And like you just keep trying to push yourself. You're like, nah, I'm gonna stay another minute, another 2 minutes. And just keep pushing.
Awareness and thoughtful, right?
Yeah,
that helps you control that.
It's crazy, and you never really know how far you can go until you push yourself to that, that corner.
100%. That's why I think like things like marathons, triathlons, and like these, Spartan races or CrossFit games or any contact sport, right? Jiu-jitsu tournaments. That's why we like this. We need that stressor to challenge ourselves.
Hey guys, stop letting your body go on in pain and feeling sore all the time, man. Start putting some deposits in your health bank and take care of your vessel. Go get yourself an amazing massage gun from Sharpened Recovery. It's a very affordable and lasts a long time. Highly recommended. It probably costs less than 5 meals outside and definitely cheaper than a pair of shoes. Instead of getting something that's going to be on your feet, why not get this massage gun to massage those feet and legs? Go to sharpenedrecovery.com and use the code AliChannel for 20% off your guns. Yes, 20%. You can thank me later. So what are you waiting for, guys? Go get yourself some amazing gear.
We won't do it ourselves on a regular day-to-day, but if we put ourselves and sign ourselves up for something where there's other people around and there's our own, if you've got that thing there to get you going, then you can find out those answers about yourself. I think that's why we love martial arts so much, right? It's because you can get there on like you don't have to run 42 Ks to get there. You get there in fucking 3 minutes. When you're getting your ass whooped by someone, or you're trying to figure out your positioning, or you're trying to breathe under pressure and you've got someone on top of you, you're in your head the whole time.
It's like 100 things happening at the same time. It's crazy.
You got to control yourself.
But anyway, Theo, before we carry on, for those who might not know who you are, could you just give a brief introduction about yourself?
Sweet. My name is Theophile Poizat. What am I? I am a physical therapist, I guess. I'm a health enthusiast, a health coach. I'm just trying to figure out how to live my life as best as possible. And I keep finding that learning about the body and how it works and how my mind works and my interpretation of my hormones and reality and everything, I just seem to live a better life. So my quest is just to try and help people figure that out as I keep learning about it, because I just geek out on it and I find it fascinating. So...
Man, that's awesome. And, talking about learning about the body, there's just so much about the body to learn about. And what would you say there's a lot of things that like we as human beings still have not learned and fully understood?
100%.
Capabilities.
I think 100%. I think the more intelligent or the more learned you are, the more you realize you don't know. Right? I don't know if it's a Terence McKenna quote, but it's like, as the bonfire of like enlightenment grows, it illuminates the surface area of the shit you don't know. So there's always more to learn. And like, even like from a school of physiotherapy, like we're just adapting things quite often because the scientific literature is changing, and be like, well, actually this thing that we thought was really good, we realize doesn't have as much effect as we believed, or we haven't used it correctly. Like take icing, for example, the rest ice, compress, elevate protocol. The gentleman who came up with that protocol based off the literature that he'd studied, or the science that he did, came out pretty soon afterwards, or recently anyway, has said, well, I misinterpreted the literature. We don't really want to be resting, icing, compressing, and elevating, because we're blocking the inflammatory cascade. We're stopping inflammation, right? When you get sore and something happens, you get swollen, you get an injury. Inflammation is a natural part of the healing response. We need that inflammation to happen to break down the damaged tissue in the old cells, to make space for the new collagen and new tissues to come in and repair. So if you're icing something and constricting your blood vessels, yes, you'll be temporarily blunting swelling, but are you delaying the healing response? That's the argument there, and there's a really strong argument for it. It's not to say there aren't situations where a bit of ice can be beneficial, but it can really only be used as like topical pain relief.
Oh,
yeah. So for anyone listening out there, if you you get these knocks and these injuries, it's about like trying to get active movement and like flushing the fluid and getting movement, and then as those new tissues are being laid down, like the new wall is being repaired, is using that with the right amount of force to make sure that those tissues are lined up nice and straight. Right, the same principle as we've been doing with you with your shoulder and
yes, bro.
I won't talk about all your injuries on here, bro, but we all have them, right?
Definitely, bro. Yeah, I mean, there's no lie. I mean, I'm having like real bad shoulder injuries and neck injuries, and like it's just part and parcel of if you are doing any sport, that doesn't mean just combat sport, but like any sport, there's always going to be injuries. But it's interesting you mentioned about this whole icing thing, because like that's what we've always been taught from the very beginning. Like back in the day when you started, like if you have you not break, but like you injure something or this, that, whatnot, like ice pack, chuck the ice on, leave it there. That's what it is.
I know. So it's not about like throwing out the baby with the bathwater completely. It's just acknowledging that this stimulus or this input like ice has an effect. What is that effect? Here's what we thought it was, because we knew it would stop swelling, but we know now swelling is part of the injury equation, right? So it doesn't mean that when you do exercise you want to have lots of swelling. It's just, is it the most effective strategy for recovering that tissue, which is to rest and put something on it? And it's like, no. Because there's a reason, if you have like a total hip replacement or a knee surgery, we try to get you standing day one. We need load, we need movement, but we need the right amounts without overreaching or exceeding it. And that's all an injury is, right? It's when the load exceeds the capacity to bear that load. If I grab the mic stand and put more stress than the capacity for the stand to absorb, something's going to give. So you have to play with that equation.
Man, Theo, I like how you go into detail with a lot of these things, and you have a lot of interest with it, bro. How did this come about? Why did you, what triggered this, the search for learning about this, and what made you want to do it in the first place?
It's a good question. I don't know if anyone's really asked me that. And that, like, my instinct was to be like, because I've broken myself so many times, I fractured my foot, my shin, I've torn a PCL, I've got my clavicle floating out of place, 3 ligaments there, multiple tears there, and I've managed to avoid surgery on them. And it's just because I just find it fucking interesting. I just find it really interesting to figure it out. And I think a lot of us are kind of hungry to do it. And yeah, I'll have to meditate on this a bit more and figure out exactly why. But I've just
that's like
always
a very deep question.
Yeah, I've always because it's my life, dude. You know,
Yeah,
like
bro.
it's literally been the entire trajectory of my life since I've been in high school.
Wow.
Since I learned about like even like physical education, learning about the bones and how the system works. I'm like, well, the thing is because like everybody has a body, right? We all have a similar body, the same mechanics, if you will. We all have the same chance or responsibility to take care of it if we're lucky. So like it's never a bad thing to learn about how the body works because it's your vehicle by which you like experience reality, right? As far as we know, this is our one shot that we get on here, regardless of your beliefs of your afterlife and whatnot. It's like take care of what you know immediately you have, which is your body, your tissues, your mind. And then the more you learn, the more you realize that each system is interlinked and then each system is dependent on the other one, right? How you move affects your hormones, how your hormones affects how you think affects how you interpret things that happen to you, which goes back into what you eat, how you think, how you move. And it's just this, intricate cycle. So I just keep figuring out little analogies that make me understand the whole thing. I'll listen to people far more intelligent than me breaking things down. I'll read a bit of science. I'll read some textbooks and some things like that. But having the conversations with different people that have vested interest in different aspects of the systems kind of helps you realize how it fits all together. And the more you do that, I mean, like I presume here we're talking to a huge part of the martial arts community. Everybody that trains martial arts at some point is invested in their health. Even if you just want to be able to do your techniques better, if you want to survive longer and better, but the more you understand the system, better off you'll be.
Just off camera just now, we were talking about posture, right? And
Go on.
we're talking about posture, and this was one thing that I picked up from you recently as well. It's like when when I sit down wherever, and then you start to slouch, and then I kind of like, man, I push. It just hits me, and I was like, man, why am I slouching, bro? And then I sit back straight again. Like this was something that when we did our sessions, like you kind of this is a small little thing that you corrected, and like you want to correct your posture, and I was like, oh, and then it stuck with me, bro. So like I'm trying to build this habit of like every time I try to slouch, or when I sit with with not on a chair, I just make sure that I sit straight.
Nice.
We're just talking about posture. Why is posture so important, bro?
Posture isn't everything, but like anything, it adds up. So if you start having what we would deem shitty posture, or posture where you're just not loaded in as balanced a position, the rest of how your mechanics fire after that are a little bit more compromised and implicated, right? Let's say, for example, like the classic like slouching in posture. And it's not to say you can never be in this position, right? And that's a big thing we've talked about. Like your best posture is your next posture. Like motion is lotion. The more you move, the better off you be. But there are periods where you will sit in a sustained position for a long time because the world for us is built around sitting, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank God for the Industrial Revolution. All right? But we have to acknowledge that like we weren't designed for sitting in prolonged positions. So if you can make them a little bit more ideal, then that's a better off thing. So what we're talking about, like the slouching is a real simple one. If your lower back tips inwards, typically you round the shoulders and bring your head forwards to counterbalance for that. And that just puts you into a position where the pecs and the muscles of the internal rotators of the shoulder, they just like to sit more forwards rotated. And so this starts to become their normal because they're here for a huge part of the day. That's all resting positions are, is where they like to sit for more often than not. Like if they're here all day, they will find this as their normal. And then we turn over a million punches, we do press-ups, we do pushes and all of that. And then that's why we have issues out here, right? You go for a takedown, someone sprawls on you, forces you into that abduction extension position, or you miss a punch, and then some issues occur. That's just one mechanical reason why being aware of like how you hold yourself is important. But some of the cool chats we've been having, or what I wanted to talk to you about was like how your posture will dictate how your body is speaking to itself in terms of the chemical cocktail that is being produced, right? Your hormones, that's what your body is constantly churning out. What we see is based off your posture, and Jordan Peterson has a really cool lecture on this, and even his first chapter in 12 Rules for Life is a great discussion on this. I would highly recommend if anyone's interested in this
12
to check
Rules
that out.
for Life by
Yeah.
Jordan
Peterson.
Peterson. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. So he talks about how we share a intrinsic system with our crustacean ancestors, which is basically like after defeat or victory, they will assume a more stooped posture or a more erect and proud posture. And based off that will dictate the amount of serotonin and different hormone chemicals that have to do with victory. And not so much victory, I guess. It's more about being able to take on more challenges and things like that, and how the world views you in terms of where you sit in the hierarchy, right? Where there's hierarchy's been misused quite a bit, but it's just how you hold yourself is how much respect sometimes people will give you as well. And some people, like we said, will hide from the world. And that's actually telling their body they're secreting more of the hormones that have less to do with things that are going to make you more successful in this life and being taken more, seriously by people and things like that. And I said, like, even from a posture point of view, it's not great. Like some of the young girls that I'll treat, if they're developing a chest, they'll hide from the world in here. Or young timid boys that have been bullied will hide like this. So it's not to say you have to go around and strut like Conor McGregor and stuff, but there's a reason he's doing it.
Yeah, that's an ideal.
Right? There's a reason he's doing that. And it's because he's speaking volumes to himself. He's on top of the world at that moment. So even just standing tall and upright, you're more alert, you're more aware, you're speaking to yourself in a better way, and you're less likely to develop contractures because you're always in this range here. And then if you start pushing and pulling and you're doing it in this position here, that's when we deal with irritations and overload, which is what I educate people
and you get a lot of
daily
injuries
basis.
and stuff you don't need to.
Yeah. So it's not all, and don't take away from this conversation that posture is static and you need to be like this and never move. But typically, the more the head can be balanced on the shoulders sit on the rib cage and the rib cage on the pelvis, the better off you are.
Yeah, it's the other thing, like, there was one picture you shared on your Instagram the other day, which I thought was quite funny, about the something to do with the banana shaped.
It's like, if you can see this message, straighten up, you banana shaped fuck. And then we're all out on our phones. The amount of people that send me a message saying, dude, I feel attacked.
Because that's what you're probably doing, bro. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
man.
that's another one, man. Deep neck flexors are quite weak for people because we're hinging forwards in the head quite a bit. So when you guys do your strength and conditioning or we do any exercises, have a think of the posture of the neck, what's happening. Because a lot of people will plank, push and pull, and they'll just let their head either slump, extend or be down. And it's just like bring that chin in a little bit to engage those deep neck flexors. Because think of the spinal column like a hose, right? The spinal cord is what contains all the juice, like the nervous system, the activation and recruitment of muscle fibers. If the hose is a little bit kinked, if you're squatting fully extended or your head's down, you're just not going to get as much juice down the hose. So when you train, think of like your posture.
Yeah, that's what you see as well. A lot of guys, like, you just overextending your neck.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, big time.
And like sometimes when you look at it, like I get a bit worried sometimes when I see people like when they're squatting real heavy, bro. And then like I look at the position of the bar and I'm like, fuck, I don't know, like I don't think that's really good for you, eh?
I don't think there's been enough of an emphasis in the culture of training and exercise, the fitness industry, for lack of a better word, on making sure that people have the prerequisites before we add load to them. It's a huge thing. It's really changed my philosophy when I started learning about these principles.
But that's the thing as well, like when, because like in this day and age, there's just so easy access to gyms, right?
Yeah.
I could just, anybody could just roll up to a gym, sign up and start working out.
Sure.
And nobody really cares what you're going to do in the gym.
Nope.
Unless you're breaking something or like, you're disturbing other people. Like nobody gives a shit.
Nope.
There's all this equipment here, all these weights. And this is what you see happens a lot. Is people just rock up and they just start doing whatever. And they probably don't have like zero knowledge.
Yeah.
They just look and then they do.
Yep.
But the thing is, sometimes when you're looking at someone who's doing it wrong, you're going to do it wrong as well.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah, that's a great point because we learn by mirror neurons by seeing If we see dynamic movement, we're trying to break it down in our head how it's being done. And that's why it's a real problem when we're not living in a world where we see enough dynamic movements, or if our kids don't, that kind of thing. Because yeah, it lights up different areas of the brain. A huge part of the brain is represented by motor movement, almost 50% of overlapping areas. And so if you're not seeing it all the time, let alone doing it, it's like your brain's not going to leave a light on in a room in the house that it's not using. But that light has like overlapping areas with different cognition, memory retention, attention on task, all of these kind of things. That's why when the body moves, the brain grooves. There's direct correlations.
Hey, you're dropping a lot of this.
Little one-liners. It makes it fucking
bro.
easy to remember that way. Yeah, because if you forget all the details of certain things, you read a lot of interesting, like a great article. Just take away what's the nugget, right? Shout out to VDK for the nuggets. He's the one that always taught me how to find the nuggets and what it is and take that away. But yeah, huge correlations between movement and more brain capacity. And when we're thinking about learning techniques and being able to think on the spot in dire situations, those things are interlinked. They've done studies with kids where they had two groups of kids coming in for the same exam, split them in half. Once half goes outside, does a quick bit of playing, a little bit of exercise, if you will. They just go and play, come straight back in. On average, 10 to 20% better on all their test scores.
Wow.
The only difference to separate them was the fact that they moved. Yeah.
That's a very interesting statistic, man.
Yep.
You know, adding to what you said, well, you know, taking little nuggets as well. I just had a meeting discussion earlier on in this week. And it is said that when you have a meeting, discussion, whatever, like statistics have shown that you only take away 10% of what happened in that 1 hour period or half an hour, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And how there are like ways to enable you to retain more is by taking down notes and, you know, just small little things. And by writing, it helps to reinforce, and you probably take away, like, you retain 60 to 70%. So from a 10% to a 60, 70%, that's a big difference, bro.
That is a lot.
It's crazy. You know, that's why, like, you know, they say in lectures, don't just sit down and listen, like, take some notes. And
Sure.
there's a reason why it's being said. But talking about that, like, you know, the other thing that I feel as well, I don't know, maybe in this day and age it's a little bit different, but back in the old days.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
Yeah, back in the day, personal trainers for me was like, it was different then. They would approach people, talk to people, and like, if they see something you're doing wrong, they tell you about it, and then they'll correct you and they'll show you what is the right way. They'll teach you, bro, without being paid, you know. But I felt that as the years went by, slowly there was this shift to like,
it's just PTs now.
yeah, it's just like I will only train you if like I'm paid for that time. I'm sitting there, like I'm probably at the gym sitting there, but I'm not gonna bother about like going to people and telling people or whatever, like not unless you engage me or whatever, you know. It's that's like a little bit of it's like a weird culture, like, you know, you think that if you were to approach, you socialize, talk to people, that people remember you and it might work for you down the line. They might engage you, you know. But
there's probably some people out there doing that. But I agree with you. Like I don't go to many conventional gyms now because I have access to Combat Academy and CKB and stuff up here. But I've gone to a few with my partner, and I've seen it. And then I've seen the PT coming in with this old lady, and I could see just how she was moving. I was like, that lady doesn't have a shoulder. And I'm watching this guy ask her to like dumbbell shoulder press, and I'm like, oh god, I'm just dying inside. I'm like, no, like you have to check if she has a shoulder first before you ask her to have load. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, man, because I'll rant a lot about that.
But I think it's good to talk a little bit about it. But like, what are your thoughts on like, you know, just okay in general, like when you're there, if you see someone doing it wrong, would you say something to them?
I try to, man. But the problem is that like I would forever be talking to people because there is so much to educate. When someone's walking down the street, I can't help but analyze their gait and just be like, oh shit, there are some Achilles issues going on. That dude, that hip's not working. His foot's going all the way in, you know. But so I'm not going to stop a dude on the street and be like, I'm going to need your glute medius to start switching online. So we're going to do some lateral steps up 3 times 15 every day. It'd be great. You're welcome. See ya.
And just walk over.
Well, we kind of do that in the gym. And so this is a good point. It's a caveat, which is why we have to build a culture in whatever community we have, which is in the fight gym, which is strength and conditioning, which is any gym you go to to understand how to take care and move the body and how to take care of your joints and tissues and what that means. And then to like be able to correct each other on that as you see it, like make it part of the culture. Right?
Just
like
normalize
if you,
it.
Yeah, if you see someone doing it like a really shitty kick and they're not turning it over, like someone might just be like, oh, brother, just like step over the jet, like open up that hip and then kick. And then they'll be like, yeah, thanks, bro. We need that, but with like understanding dynamic movement. Why should we dynamic stretch over static stretching? These kind of things. I'll still turn up to a gym and like 15, 20 minutes before class, people are early, just sitting down, chatting, or one guy's in the corner still statically stretching his groin, or someone's just doing these wild kicks on the bag, and it's be like, fuck, it'll be great to go in and see a culture where everyone's like, all right, is my shoulder working? Can I check with my shoulder? Someone's chatting and like doing some dynamic band work, you know, and someone's like, oh, bro, when you're pulling with your shoulder, it's all up here and jacked up, try and pull down. Like for us all as a collective to learn a few of those basics and how it goes, that'd be a dream for me. I reckon I'd just see so many less injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
If we can build that culture, and that's really my goal, bro. That's my goal.
Yeah, we'll get to the your goal and the stuff that you want to build more in a second. I have some questions on that as well. But like what we said, that just coming maybe like half an hour before your training or 40 minutes or whatever.
That's ideal.
And
we can't always do that.
Yeah,
right?
we can't expect everyone to like have that, not everybody has that amount of time to be able to come, but maybe 15, 20 minutes even to just come before and do those stretches, get your body. It's like, I can't remember where I heard it, but the warm up before the warm up, right? So you got to get your body ready for the warm up.
Just checking in with your tissues. Like, does my knee, my hip, my shoulder, my lower back have the capacity for what I'm about to ask it to do? Have I checked in with it today? Have I done like a daily oil change? Have I woken up the receptors that fire feedback to my brain about where that joint is? Right? If I haven't isolated the movement and done that, my brain isn't as aware of that tissue for the upcoming movement. And if you could do that 15 minutes beforehand, or at least throw in a few sets and reps of corrective stuff afterwards, that would be great. I almost wonder, because that hardly happens, and I'm guilty too, bro. Sometimes I'm turning up, I don't have time to rap today. Just put my gloves on and get in, right? Which is all right. But like, that can't be the only stimulus that your tissues get, is all of a sudden to throw X combination of the day, drill of the day.
Like, real quick.
People won't always just go to 100. They're still smart. They'll build their way up. But like, your shoulder can't only ever work in these ranges, right? And push, press, pull. It's got 270 degrees of movement, and it needs to be challenged in those different areas as well. So you have to think, when else can I fit that in throughout your day? Because remember, sports, exercise is a human invention that we have done to compensate for no longer doing what we used to do, right? Ancestors never played sport in that sense, because they were busy surviving, moving, hunting, and doing all that kind of stuff all the time. So you are compensating for generally living a sedentary lifestyle because of modern era in an hour, and you're compressing all of that lack of movement into an hour class that you enjoy doing the most, whether it's your CrossFit, whether it's your kickboxing, whether it's your MMA, whether it's your jiu-jitsu, whatever your disciplines are, you're trying to fit that into it there. So if that's the only stimulus that your body is getting in those ranges, you're going to be missing out, because you're not stimulating those tissues and those joints in other directions. So how can we combine that either as part of a 10, 15-minute routine dynamic warm-up, or a few resistance sets after your training? Even better yet, how could we do it as like trainers and clubs as part of the class?
That was what I was saying. We had this conversation. I remember we had this conversation before. Is I feel like some part of the reason might be because lack of education, because people don't know,
and we've always been taught to do it this way, so we'll always do it this way, right? Yeah, for sure.
So like like what you said, being part of the training, or even being taught how to do this, like when your trainer or your fight coach comes, for the actual like boxing or kickboxing, jiu-jitsu,
it's time to box and do those drills.
Exactly. And they don't have time to do all these other things, before that. So you need to find ways to learn that and do it yourself. And that's why that's how you actually separate like people who are not serious about it and people who are like serious athletes, or who,
that's a good point.
That's where you can see the difference. When you look at someone, what they do before a training session, it can usually tell how serious they are about what they're gonna do.
And I've watched some of those boys for a long time. I know who's good and I know who's not. I've seen who does the mahi, and I've seen who don't, who just wake up and go. No, I'm talking to you.
You know who you are.
But we're all guilty of it
Yeah,
too.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it happens sometimes, but it shouldn't be the normal,
Yeah, and so how do we close this gap, right? And what you were saying is like, so the ownership is typically on the individual to learn what this is, and that's what's hard because it's like, what do I do? There's so much information out there. All of it costs energy and time, which we can't be bothered doing. So we have to be really sure, or at least very confident in what we're doing is appropriate. We have to understand it, know how to do it. So with the what, how, and why, then we'll put that extra energy in to doing it. This is why I'm on a journey to learn this stuff, not so I can find all the answers and be like, I've got it, but just because I want to know how to do that for myself and be able to teach other people. Because the ownership, so some people are good, they might go out and they'll do some yoga, or they'll try and do, they're like, if you ask anyone, they're like, I think I need to stretch more. Everyone's like, yeah, I know I should stretch more. But I'm like, should you? Like, do you actually know what static stretching is and what it gives you? Because I can guarantee you it's not going to prevent injuries.
The difference between this, what you
static and dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Learning the difference between flexibility and mobility is huge. It's everything, in my opinion.
You're big in, you're big on mobility.
Yeah.
Right. Why is that? And like, how is it?
Because the more so maybe we should explain that. Flexibility is what we call something passive, right? Is if I lift my leg, that's how flexible I am. I'm using that passively to get up there. How mobile I am is how much control of that range I have. So when I'm physically lifting my leg up myself. So it's the amount of control you have over your ranges of motion as opposed to how much range of motion is available. I don't care how far you can be forced by being pushed there. I care about how much force that you can absorb over the whole range, your access to it, because that's what means good quality tissue. If you're producing force over larger ranges of motion, i.e. you're mobile, you can control and own that stuff, then you can produce force there. You have more capacity out of those tissues, those joints, those ligaments, those muscles, those tendons. If I can give my athletes as much capacity as possible, then you can do whatever dynamic movements you want. Whether it's wanting to head kick people into your 50s, right? Or whether it's just wanting to be able to dance at your grandkid's wedding. The rules for each of us are the same. Our demands are different. And that's why, high level martial arts and stuff is different. But yeah, learning that I think is big. And this is the hard part, is because you have to kind of go out and find that knowledge. And some guys are really good at it, and some guys have really invested it, and they'll learn about it and stuff like that. That's why you see Brad rolling and doing all these kind of things first, and like really playing with these tissues.
Yeah, he's one of the, I tell a lot of people as well, like, if you, people who approach me and ask me like some questions or whatever, and I say, look, if you want to learn or you want to follow an example,
yes,
like one that I can say just straight off
comfortably
my head comfortably is look at what Brad is doing, right? See what he does before his training.
This is Brad Riddell for people who don't know.
Brad Riddell, yes. We're talking about Brad Quake Riddell.
Shout out, Brad.
Yeah. And look at him and what he does before his training and after training, and how he's very disciplined in doing this, And you can take a lot from what he does. And then just by watching, okay, obviously you might not fully understand what he's doing, and then after you see what he's doing, go and find some answers. You can
Google a 10-15 video on the difference between flexibility and mobility or something. But so this is, I think, there's a demand and a desire for this. Everybody wants to kind of understand and know these things a bit better and how they fit into the whole system. That's what I'm really excited about, to try and be more of an educator on, because I find myself having these conversations with the majority of my patients anyway. I'll have these conversations 12 times a day in different aspects of it, and teaching people how to build quality tissue and what access to range looks like, right? How to, basically be able to have more capacity in those tissues.
Yeah, you were talking about, earlier, I can't remember exactly you said there was a program or something that you were interested in looking at. What was that one about?
I'm interested in a lot of programs. I tell you, I've spent more money on like education programs and different things than I have anything else in my life.
Yo, that's
because I find it fascinating.
It's pursuit of knowledge, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's exciting.
You constantly want to be learning things and chasing after knowledge and stuff like that. But okay, sorry, I just had, before I go on to that, when did you start your martial arts journey?
I would have started when I finished university. or my last year university, which would have been 2011, 2012, I always wanted to do I did a tiny bit of judo when I was a kid, when I was like 6 years old, and I remember liking it. And I did some fencing, and that was really cool when I was living in England, and I went and competed in fencing, and it was so cool. That's why I'm a left-hand orthodox. I'm a left-hander, but I stand orthodox because fencing, you'd have your sword hand forwards.
On the left.
Yeah, so I was always balanced on that side there. And I always wanted to learn how to fight because I was always super anxious during conflict. I just hated it, and I just like my heart, which is what happens to a young man whenever you get in these confronting situations. You don't really know necessarily what to handle.
Jam up
it's just instinct, yeah. Or you jam up, right? And I always wanted to do it through uni, but I never had the balls to turn up to a gym because I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. And so I just did weightlifting, which is what a lot of young men do, right? Like if I just get big and swole, then I'll be strong and respected, you know, and the woman will want me. So you do that stuff when you're younger. And then I went back home to Gisborne when I was finishing my studies, and I caught up with an old mate who had gone and done the Tiger Muay Thai adventure. Shout out to Adam for showing me the ropes. And so I just went up to him. I was like, bro, can you just like show me like what am I aiming for? What am I trying to do? And so he just took me through like my fight stance, and we just played with some pads and stuff in there. And I was just pretty much hooked at that point onwards. He's like, bro, come to jiu-jitsu. Next week, I'm going to go down to the jiu-jitsu class down there. Turned up there and just, was in love with it at that moment there. Started rolling, and I was big at this time too. Like I'm like 82 kilos at the moment. I was like 95 kilos.
Oh.
I was big, and I had a lot of weight and muscle. And I remember I was rolling.
He was jacked. He might have been
I was rolling with this old wizard, bro. He's like the old Master Yoda of the club. He must have been like 55, 60. Shout out to Terry Brooking.
Whoa.
He caught me in an armbar, and I knew I was in a bad position. I could feel it. But I was like, I'm literally twice to three times this guy's size. I should be able to like pull my arm. I know I shouldn't slam him, but I could let me just rip my arm out. So I just tore my rotator cuff trying to rip my arm out. And he's like, why didn't you tap? And I was like, I didn't really know. And it was ego thing too, right? Like I just thought I could pull my arm out. So my first jiu-jitsu class, I ruptured my rotator cuff. Took basically 6 months to fix it because I went back to lifting too quick. And then 6 months later, fully fixed, I was like, I've got an option here. I know I got checkmated. I can either just be like, screw this shit. My ego's not going to screw them and just go back to weightlifting. Or I can go there and be like, all right, like, what did you do? How do I do that to other people? And how do I not get caught in that position again? And that's basically, I've just been on the path since then.
Wow, damn, it's pretty cool. And throughout your martial arts adventures, I understand you've done a bit of traveling, you know, and you've actually traveled and worked with a lot of the UFC boys as well. You know, the boys from City Kickboxing from way back in the day. Tell us a bit of a bit of that. Share some stories, man.
That's the beauty of martial arts. Is it's just, I guess if you follow anything with passion, you'll eventually do some cool shit, right, and do some different stuff. But I think around training for a few years, and then I got to meet the other guy in Gizzy who was really good. This is Jamie Vanderkill, who was training out of City at the time, mates with Izzy and Dan and these guys. And whenever he'd come home, we would just train together and froth on it. And I was really keen to go do the Tiger Muay Thai adventure experience. I did the whole Ryu thing, man. I got just a canvas backpack. I put my gloves in it, a couple changes of clothes and some shin guards, and I took off to Thailand. Turned up, did that. This is when Brad Riddell and Kai Kara France were at Tiger.
Were there.
Yeah, so this must have been around 2015. So I just turned up there to do a bit of training and so I did a fight camp there. Tried to have a fight there on the beatdown, but the guy pulled out the day of, which was just like, so I took off after that and explored Laos and Cambodia, and then ended up at the bottom of Vietnam because while I was over there, Dan Hooker, Jamie Vanderkill, Ev Ting, who's been on 1FC and stuff like that, those boys got flown over there to try and build the team at Saigon Sports Club to build a bit of the fight team. So Jamie was like, dude, if you're in Thailand, come over here, just crash on the floor and we're just going to train. And so I just got to live that like pro fight lifestyle for like maybe 6 months it was. We would just wake up, train, go home, sleep, eat, wake up, take the classes, train in the evening, take another classes, go drive around on scooters all day, eating. Dude, it was wicked, man. It was like the perfect life. And I just sleep on the floor, bro, and I just wake up, my shoulders were just fucked. I was like, And I was like, this is what it means,
the,
you know?
The simple life, bro.
Yeah, just
The
getting my
simple
ass
life.
beat by Dan and Jamie every day, but it was great, man. Yeah.
Sleeping on the concrete floors,
Yep.
bro. There's nothing like sleeping on. Man, if you've never experienced sleeping on concrete floors,
Especially
in your
after
life,
like fighting like 3 times a day. It's a different kind of grind, man. You get a huge appreciation for that.
Yeah.
So I got to see like Dan's full camp there. I can't believe what that guy managed to do, because this is when he was the division below too.
and he was in what's that?
Yeah, this is around when he did that.
145.
Yushin Aoki, Hubert Aoki, he head kicked him. That was that fight he did. I saw that guy training harder than any of us for like the last 2 weeks off like 2 broccolis and an apple a day. It honestly blows my mind what his output was, and he still impresses me to this day. That guy, man.
So when you think about it, sometimes like you know, some people like to criticize, you know, people when they make it or when they're big, or
no fucking
you
idea
know,
what goes by.
when they have all the luxuries, but like you have no idea probably what this guy goes through.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
like, and if you've never fucking slept on a concrete floor in your life, you have no right to criticize anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like who come out like, and you see a lot of the, you know, talking about ONE FC, you talk
Yeah.
about the Asian fighters,
Yeah.
from
It's getting
Thailand.
big, man. ONE FC is
from
putting on some wicked
Yeah,
fights,
bro,
dude.
it's huge. It's definitely growing, and it is like a huge market already. Like they have apparently, I heard the other time the stats and the numbers, but like they have a huge following, and the amount of money, the whole market they have, it's huge in the Asian market especially. But like you look at a lot of their fighters from third world countries, and like these guys don't have, you know, private saunas or cryotherapy or, you know, access to high level education and all that sort of stuff, but they're still doing it.
It's
you know?
kind of the beauty of fighting. I think that's why there's a lot of like true fans out there, is because it's like the ultimate test for some way of anyone can just get in there and through hard determination and clever training achieve the highest version of themselves, right? At what point they want to push that. I think that's why we all do it, because we, like we said, it's that pushing ourselves a little bit. It's one of the biggest things there.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And so the that trip that you did with Dan, and then after, did you get a fight after that one?
No, so I did a fight camp there with all those boys, and then one of the head coach left there, so a lot of the people were starting to bounce. I actually, while we were still there, I ended up, one of the fighters there, Sotia Kichukov, he was like a Bulgarian MMA guy. He got a fight over in the Kazakhstani circuit.
Oh.
And he was like, hey, bro. I was like, there was no one at the time that could coach and corner him. And he's like, would you come help me and be in my corner? And I was like, yep.
Why not?
I was like, bro, just so you know, like, I ain't that experienced, but I'll help however I can, dude. And so I thought this was Russia. And like, bro, like 4 days before we went up to the Russian embassy, which turned out to be the Chechnyan embassy. And he's like, and I was like, dude, is this fight in Chechnya? And he's like, yeah. I was like, fuck. I was like, Chechnya. I was like, is that where like every bad guy from every like action movie comes from? And I was like, all right, good. My mum sends me a list of like all this, like the terrorism things that have happened in Chechnya, because they've just basically been leveled by the Russians twice, right? And bro, that was a hell of an adventure. But bro, it was like one of the most genuine displays of hospitality I've ever received over there. Yeah, I loved my time there. It was very under lock and key. Like we were fully escorted the whole time, and like we got greeted at the airport by like, you know, guys in AKs, and we jumped in the vans and just like floored it at 140, 2 hours through red lights and everything. We got the full kind of presidential escort. That was a crazy adventure. But I loved it.
Something different. You
so
don't get
different, bro.
experience
Dude, I'll
shit
jump
like
on all that shit straight away, man. It was so cool. So when we came back to Vietnam, and then Jamie and I had fights back in New Zealand, so we came home for it. He did his pro kickboxing debut there. My guy pulled out a week of again.
Oh, man,
the week of the fight, and I was just like, man, this sucks, because I'd just been like, I was prepared, man, and I was ready for it. And then so I tried for another fight camp after that fight. And this was when I was back home in Gizzy, just working. And then I just trained by myself, or trained with my brother Max. And Jamie would come back and help us train. And then one day he didn't turn up for training. And we were like, fuck. And then it was because, he'd passed away. He'd had an accident. And one of the most impressive people I've ever met, or biggest influence in my life, it just didn't turn up anymore. And so that was really tough. And it was really just confusing and hurt. And that's why like my heart like is like going out to the Vaki fam and everyone affected, because you know, yesterday the service, I mean, as far as the service goes, it was beautiful, but you know, you're still saying goodbye to an incredible person that touched a lot of people.
Definitely,
And that
man.
sent me straight back to a lot of the emotion in those moments.
It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. Like this whole week has been like, even for myself, like it's just it's a bit hard to, you gotta take some time. So I haven't been like very active on social media and all that as well. Like I just felt for myself, like being part of this community, knowing the brothers, like it just didn't sit very well with me to just carry on life like as per normal. So I just
don't.
like thought I want to like take it easy for a while and not. I don't I don't want to seem like it's a hard position to be in as well. Like you want to be together with your community, your family, and I don't want to put it out there like I'm really happy and it's
For
like
sure,
that's
man.
just not. So I just like just take a break for a while and take this time to grieve and to really understand, to be with those people as well.
I think that's nice, man.
To show some whatever form of support and which I took a bit of time and I made it's really I shared with one of my mates I was just talking to just about 2-3 days ago. So a couple of months ago, John was fighting on a show in Wahi in a 8-man kickboxing tournament, and I went for that one because I wanted to be there, support, not only support John, but I did some filming for him. I did some record. I wanted to get some cool films of him and do like a little bit of a feature
I've
film.
seen the tribute you made,
Yeah,
man. It's beautiful.
And exactly. And when I was there, when I was doing the filming and all that, I had it in my folder on my PC for a while because the events that happened on that day, and then the first fight went really well. Second fight didn't go so well, and I just was trying to be a bit more sensitive towards the situation. It's like might be not the best time to like go out and make a video like straight away. So I want to like give it a while, and then after a couple, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, and I'll talk to John again, and I say, hey, you happy for me to make a film out of this and like put it out? And so it was just sitting on my PC, bro. I was just sitting there for a while, and then I thought about that, like when all this happened, the predicament that Fa was in. I was like, man, I wanna open up that folder and see what I have. And when I opened up that folder, bro, and I looked back at all the videos that I shot, there's so many videos that I took a file, bro. And like when I was like at home, sitting down on my PC and going through the footage, like it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand, bro. Like I was like, yo, I didn't know what to say, bro. I was like, man, I was recording so much of this guy, and who would have known this would be the last time that I would have recorded? Because the among the brothers, the next person who I actually wanted to have on the podcast was Fao.
Yeah.
It was John was the first one, and then I went like let it sit for a while, and then Fao was gonna be the second one, and then after that James. Yeah. But he was actually the next person that I thought of having on the podcast, bro. And like all these little things that I was like, it's crazy. Like the guy, I didn't have the opportunity to know him for a very long time, but in the short amount of time that I did know him, like
it's just positive. It's just positive interaction.
Every time we see each other, we're smiling,
bro.
We're shaking hands, we're hugging, we're talking, saying how you use everything's very positive. Bro, this guy, like, I can't seem to remember a time where I did not see him, like where I saw him unhappy.
Yeah,
and it's just crazy, bro. Like you think about it, that how the situation happened. I don't know. It's a hard one, eh?
It is, bro. It sucks. It just like there's nothing at the end of the day. Like it's like it's sad and it sucks. And like grief will take like people. You just take your time and you just like the only positive out of this is how it brings community together. It brings people together in their grief and then they're trying to be processing. And like I've just been incredibly like thoughtful. Like I've just been in thought a lot just over this whole time since this incident, and you just think, you reflect, you start to realize what you truly value, what is it that you want. It's a horrible reminder that tomorrow is not guaranteed for anyone. I guess it's just a reminder to live your life to the fullest, right? Not to be cliche, but that's what like Jamie represented to me. And like I saw this post that Mark and a bunch of the boys had shared about that Theophile did, just of exactly that, of just like living present, living happy in your day.
A lot of his posts was being grateful, that to realize you are blessed, and you have this and you have that.
For sure. And I must admit, like that's a attribute that gets cultured and nurtured in martial arts. Like a lot of people, like that's why I love the martial arts community. And wherever I travel, I will always sync up with some aspect of the martial arts community because you always get genuine, humble, grateful people.
Exactly,
in it.
100%, bro. And you know, like there's always that misconception of like people who do combat sports or fight are like rough and tough.
Sure. I mean, there's always idiots in anything.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You get
yeah.
outliers in anything, but across the most sport, yeah, agreed with you. Yeah, people can't see it beyond violence.
Now, I, I don't know how, like, I don't know much about it, but like, you know, there has been a lot of talk. I mean, obviously, I do not agree with the coward punches, right? So for people who don't know, who are just finding out about this and stuff like that, you know, how this incident happened was Fa was attacked from the back and he fell and hit his head on the ground, right? And I, I I okay, I have had this happen to me before. So years ago, at a bar, there was a little bit of a fight and it went outside. And so me and my mate was talking to this other guy, I think he was, I don't know, I can't remember exactly where he was from, might be a Russian guy or whatever. And so I was facing him and talking to him, and apparently his mate came from the back and he just smashed me right in the back of the head. And I got knocked, it just went blank, bro. I hit the ground.
Were you on concrete?
Yeah, in Bali on the road, and that was like in Legian, so it was like the main
Tarmac,
street, right? So hit the road, but a few seconds later, I woke up, and when I woke up, I saw my mate was already like he was beating up the guy who attacked me, and I was like, bro, straight on, boom. I was like, I know, cause like I got hit by someone.
Yeah.
I fell. I didn't know like how long I was out or whatever, but
yeah.
it wasn't very long. And then when I saw my mate attack the guy, like that must have been the guy that.
Yeah.
So I just went in as well, like, and his mate was trying to attack. So it turned into a big fight. And when this whole thing happened, like I think about it again, I was like, man, you start to realize that could have been me, bro.
Yep.
Like, you know, and I was like, fuck. And it was not unfortunately in my life, that was not the first time it happened to me.
Yeah.
There was another time I got attacked from the back, and I think this guy had a lighter in his hand. Hit me from the back. I was waiting for a cab going home, and he slit my eyebrow, and I had like eight stitches or whatever. Hit me from the back, and my whole face was covered in blood and shit. I was like, yo, it was rough. And
I'm thinking the only good thing that you can take away from this tragic and horrible situation, I don't even want to put it that way as a good thing, but it's like it's sparking the conversations and it's making people way more reflective on what they've done and hopefully how they'll behave in the future. You can only hope so. I worked as a doorman with a bunch of my best mates. Jamie being one of them at the time. Me, Maxie and Ben and a bunch of the other boys would work in this the only bar to go out in Gizzy, to be honest. We were the doorman if anyone wanted a good time, they had to be kind to us to a certain point. But people, you know, when they're on the piss, they'll do whatever they want. But it just amazed me how like, and I was training the whole time. So the last thing I wanted to do was to fucking scrap someone at a bar, especially when I'm sober.
Yeah, and were you like in a suit and all that?
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean,
bro,
you'll throw people out, but like it just amazed me how keen people were to fight that have like first of all no idea how to fight. But like I saw some where like there was this confrontations and then someone would bail and they would just come sprinting in from the blind side and throw shots. I remember there's a couple guys I remember to this day, and I'll never give them any respect because I've seen them do that to other people. And then this was meters away from the bar as they're leaving, but like I'm there on the ground like holding this guy's head in a recovery position while his girlfriend's screaming, he's covered in blood and the ambulance is coming in. And I guess I'm a healer, like that's what I do, like I try and help people, so like I'm just sensitive to that fucking kind of shit. And I don't like it. But like, and because ever since I was young, I remember hearing stories of how this happened in Australia in a town that someone got cracked, hit their head, and that person lost their life. So I was always mindful of it. So this just hits home and it's awful. And I just think people, like, hopefully everyone can just reflect a bit more on their actions and be grateful for how lucky they've been and try to be less of a fuckwit in the future, for lack of a better word.
That's like, yeah, I think like a little bit is like a problem with alcohol as well. You know,
Huge.
like
We got a big binge drinking
drinking
culture.
problem, and like, you know,
Australia as well.
I'm not saying drinking is wrong, but like if you drink to a point where, you know, you want to attack someone from the back, like
You're not in control of your emotions.
Yeah.
That's why this situation is tragic for everyone. It's tragic, first of all, for like an incredible young man who's lost his life, and then his family and his daughter and everyone that's left behind. It's tragic for the entire community that affects. It's also tragic for the person that's done this, because that cunt's life is fucked. Pardon the language, but you know that. You know what I mean? Like, one, he has to live that with the rest of his life. God knows what's going to happen to him with his incarceration and whatever else. And hopefully he gets the justice he does deserve. But like, it also means that there's people out there that are in such a painful way in their life, or in an insecure position in their life, where they react so emotionally, right? There's conflict. They don't like that guy. They need to prove something to themselves or their peers. So they run over there and instinctively react to trying to put someone down.
From the back.
Yeah, exactly.
The worst
Right?
thing
So,
is hitting someone from the back.
100%.
Like, and that's how a lot of people get knocked out. Like,
Yep.
when you get hit with the shot you don't see coming. That's so dangerous, man. And man, like, I've heard a little bit longer version of the story, and I don't want to, like, you know, put this out there.
Yeah, I don't think we need to clear the air of that one here.
But you know, like, the thing is, like, when you I mean, if you think about it, right, when you do that to someone, what is your intention? Like, you're trying to cause
you're trying to hurt someone, right?
And like, not just hurt them, you're saying seriously hurt somebody.
Seriously hurt someone. So people that do that are typically in a position of great pain themselves. It's an expression onwards, right? You always hear the story of like the kid that gets beaten up by his dad, so he goes and expresses that out on someone else. Yeah. So, you know, there is truth to this, say that only love will conquer all, in the sense, like, because you can't combat hate with hate, right? You can't fight fire with fire, because then everything's fucking burnt down to a crisp by the end of it. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Whatever you want to use here, but I don't know. Which is also why I think, like, if people invest in their health and get really interested in learning about health, you will address some of these other factors in your life that might lead you to react emotionally in that way. That person might not be thinking, I'm going to kill this guy at the time. They're just reacting emotionally and throwing something there. I don't know. I can't speak for the specifics, but for me, it goes back to the philosophy that if you learn how to take care of yourself and treat yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of, which is very hard to do and easy to say, but very hard to do. People take better care of their pets than they do of themselves.
True, man.
You know, it's if you can, you know, take the responsibility of taking care of yourself, you may at some point along the journey figure out these other factors as well.
Yeah, and I mean, since we're on the topic of it, for those who don't know, there's actually a Give a Little page. I'll put up links to that as well, and I'll share that on my stories and whatever. You know, to help the family of Theo. His very young daughter who was left behind. It was very sad, you know, looking at that. Like, that was one of the most painful ones. And you know, it's not, I mean, even if you can give a small amount of money, it's definitely going to go a long way. So I hope you guys can give, you know, I mean, I know as, you know, human beings, we can dig deep in our pockets and try to help, you know, people around us, especially like this situation that happened here. This is like really close to us for all people in New Zealand. Like, it's here. Yeah. It's really close, you know. And I mean, something that I like to tell people as well, like, look, put it this way, man. If it were to happen to someone you love, what would you do? You know, and this is someone that we all love, and he stood for something more than himself, you know, and we need to get behind and, you know, help his family. So yeah, dig deep in your pockets and try to give. I know we can do way better than what it's at the moment. And, you know, I hope people remember, at the end of the day, man, your money's not going to take you. You're not going to take your money with you after you go. So like, while in this life, while you have your money, help people, man. Like, help whatever cause that you want to do. You want to help, you know, people from around the world, or you want to help orphans, or you want to help whatever, like, just help, man. Like,
if you can,
if you can, if you can. And it's crazy, you know, I've seen people who don't have much to give,
they'll give
a lot.
Yeah, for sure they will.
And the people who have,
because they know what it's like to not have a lot.
Exactly, man. Yeah. And people who have so much just don't share that same, it's sad. But that is the world, and that's how the world is. But man, if you have some form of sympathy, or just like look at the situation and think about, what if the roles were reversed, but yeah. Anyway, we should really like moving forward, look at how much this guy has done in his life, what he stood for. And one of the things that I thought about a lot was how this guy always smiled a lot, bro. He was always smiling. So I want to make it like more part of like my life, like when it reminds me every time I see someone, I always smile and just greet them and say hello, how are you, like just that is something that I want to, his legacy is his smile, bro, and I want to be able to pass that around.
That's beautiful, man.
Man.
That's the biggest thing I took away from losing Jamie is being like, what did this person represent for me? What was that light? And can I keep that going on? Can I nurture and grow it? How do I embody the qualities that I admired most in this person? And you're right, Theophile, it was his smile, man. That grin was infectious. 100%, man. Yeah,
Imagine you're sparring with a bro and he lands a good one on you and he's smiling.
There's no malicious intent though. There's business there. I've seen him get down to business, bro. And then and when he's got his business face on, like, is he? All those boys are on guard, serious, man. And that's why it is. Yeah, it's like, damn, you lose that, you lose everything when the person goes. But we will keep a smile, my friend.
Definitely,
I promise you.
We'll pass that on. We'll pass that on.
All right.
Yeah, man, and so talking about like we actually had this chat before, or you were trying to build a program, or you want to hold like a tell us a little bit about that, man. What your plans are with that?
So what I'm trying to figure out is all of this knowledge that I'm trying to accumulate to fit into the system for the sake of, because I treat primarily martial artists and I train martial arts, I've started to see. And I've trained everywhere, man. I've trained in lots of different places. I've gone to Jackson Winks in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just to see, like, are they doing anything different with, like, injury prevention? Because they boast, like, quite a high injury minimum pullout, but it's because they got a couple high-level therapists as part of their gym as well. I've gone to Henzo Gracie's in New York. I've done Tiger. I've done a bunch of these different places just to be like, all right, is there anyone structuring or doing some kind of education on how we take care of things, right? How do we, like, promote health for the shoulder and the rotator cuff and all these little tidbits that I think fit back into performance, health, and most importantly, longevity in the sport. And so what I'm trying to figure out now is, instead of having just one-on-one conversations with my patients for, while I'm treating them and giving them exercises for 30 minutes to an hour, and I'm having the same conversations 12 times a day, am I better off trying to figure out a way of putting all the information together and delivering that content in a realistic, applicable and digestible way for people? And so where I'm at the moment is I want to do education workshops and seminars, because I've done a bunch of those in the past, and I think you kind of need that interpersonal skills and playing with it and getting together. So it would be about bringing out these concepts, explaining the sort of the why and the what, and then we play with the how together, right? So yeah, I think so far doing education workshops and seminars, I'm going to get better at media and posting, like, hey, this is a really good movement for the shoulder to combat these type of things and these common things. But it's about the philosophy. You've got to understand the mechanics and the philosophy behind it, and then you can apply your own methods and your principles, right? Same thing, like we learn about like framing, controlling range, having people react to feints. We don't just throw 1-2s. Millions of people can show you how to throw a 1-2, but you can never put it together because you don't understand the principle behind it. So I think we need to approach that on a connective tissue and a joint health level.
Man, that's really cool, bro. And I think like there's just a lack of this at the moment.
That's all. Yeah. And people want to know it. And it's just like, you have, like I said, the individuals have to go out there and find it and learn it, and then they apply things like some trigger release and some more stuff beforehand. And we've talked about like Brad being really good with these kind of things. And so some people, and I'm not saying like I've got all the answers and no one else has figured this out. I'm just saying there's a lack of connection between what we know and what the experts are saying, and what 10 years of being a physical therapist has taught me, and 10 years of doing martial arts has shown me where we need more of. How can I put that together in a way just to like, I really just want to grow New Zealand martial arts, because we're like incredible per capita, what we do on a world stage. I mean, we've got one of the richest histories of kickboxing. let alone the pedigree that we're putting now on mixed martial arts is like incredible. So, and we've just done a lot of the same thing the same ways, but I feel like there's a lot of like progressive minds now. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that we have to, you know, the shift in weight cutting and nutrition has been huge in the last few years. We need to approach that from a connective tissue, like joint deposits point of view, right? That's the analogy I like to use. Like your health is a bank account, training, stress is a withdrawal from the account. How do you put deposits back into it? And we need to look at that specifically joint to joint for you. If you've got a really bad hip or you've got back pain, you need to make sure you're putting extra deposits into figuring out that area, because by the time you've done your third or fourth wrestling, sparring, and sprawling in a row, those deposits start to catch up, right? And so now people are being more mindful of that from like a breathing and mindfulness point of view. Like there's all the pillars of health, right? Which is quite cool. I like seeing the guys working with Woody's movement workshops and that. And I think that's really what we need. Understanding like nervous system recovery.
I call him Dave, the breathing guru.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, we need more of that, man. And it's just like and for how long I've known how important this is and tried to apply some principles myself, it's amazing me how long it's taken for us to catch up. But I want to do that from like I guess the physical therapy, joint integrity, and health point of view, because that's obviously what I specialize with. I've got multiple certifications in that. I've been teaching it for a long time. But you have to look at the system as a whole: nutrition, mindfulness, movement, recovery, breath work. You can put so many different caps on it, but you've got to just have a little bit from everything coming in and knowing what those are. Eventually, I'd like just to basically just do education health and teach people about the whole system. Teach people how to, you know, build metabolic flexibility in terms of the food groups they eat, understanding certain things, understanding why their hormones raise and crash, how the sleep cycle affects all of these things. I just find it fascinating. I'm learning about it all the time. And I know when I talk to people about this, their eyes light up and I'm like, it's because we're all hungry for this information.
Exactly. like what I was telling you the other time, like, you know, it's because it's a leg of this stuff, you know, like you don't go around and hear about, hey, you know, would you like to learn about how you can be, you know, improve your mobility?
Some people do, but it gets overshadowed by a bit of the woo-woo stuff. Some people get a bit worried if it starts sounding too woo, and that's because in the past there has been quite a lot of snake oil salesmen, you know. And there's one in the media right now with UFC, and like and, you know, I've been following that very closely, and I'm so glad Diego got out of there, bro. And I wish he'd done it sooner.
That was a very funny one, man. I was like, what the?
You could see it happening the whole time. So those kind of things don't help, right? And then but
was that school of self-awareness? What a load of bullshit.
Complete lack of awareness, bro. It's just vampiric what he was doing, man. It was,
So with this program, you know, that you're developing, when do you think that you'll be able to like put it out there? Or
I'm hoping to around August. I'm going away.
That's really soon.
It's soon, yeah. And dude, I've been building on this, thinking about nothing but this for like 5 years now, and accumulating knowledge and putting it together. And I've played with different things. I've done a few things with the CKB boys. I've done some with the gym back home. Did some with like New Zealand women's judo. That was really cool. So it's about I want to just keep practicing and doing this and refining it to be as effective as possible. So if there is anyone out there that is interested in this philosophy or just wants to link up and share ideas and these kind of things, I'm always down for that for sure. So yeah, I'm going to be not taking patients really over the next 2-3 months, so I can just sit down and work on this. I'm actually going to Mexico in 3 weeks.
Oh.
And I'm going to just have some time over there to work on this.
You're heading to
fly out on the 17th.
Mexico just to work on this. Bro, you're taking this a little bit too far.
No, I have a wicked opportunity. My amazing partner scored a job over there. She's got a lead role in an acting gig that they're filming over there.
Oh, damn.
And so we've got a place and stuff there. So I'm like, this is perfect for me just to back, because I just don't have the energy when I'm shooting 12 people a day to kind of put all this together on top of training and stuff. So I really want to focus on this more, because I just feel like it's something that's going to be...
Put this program... together,
just play with this idea and sharing these ideas and how to reform it and get it out there and get involvement from people. And I've talked to a bunch of different coaches. I feel like I've got a good standing in the community now from working the shows and talking to people and being like, you as a coach, what's most valuable for you? Some coaches be like, my guys need to warm up in 5-10 minutes. They can't do a 40-minute warm up. My head's like, well, you probably need at least 30 minutes, We can do
Yeah.
it. Okay, so 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so what does a warm up involve? You know, how can we achieve that very quickly? Yeah,
Oh man, that's
those
so
kind
cool.
of things.
So how long are you gonna be away there for? Theo?
About 8 weeks, 9 weeks, I think. So
Oh,
we're
that's
planning coming
that's a
back
wee
in
while,
August.
man.
Yeah.
If my shoulder hurts, what am I gonna see, bro?
Dude, we can do a Skype session. You've got your homework though. You know what you need to be doing. And while I'm away, the rest of the team at Physiologic can take care of you. So shout out to Physiologic.
Physiologic team at
Yeah,
Physiologic.
for sure. If anybody needs,
Man, that's gonna be so dope, man.
yeah.
Having a holiday at Mexico, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I wanna go as well. Have a holiday.
It's pretty incredible. It's the opportunity is not lost.
Whereabouts in Mexico?
Tijuana.
Oh,
Yeah, so just south of LA into San Diego, and then Tijuana.
You'll be like rubbing shoulder with all the sicarios, and like, you know, you see next thing you know, like you're driving around in one of the 4x4s, the AK hanging out the window. Hey, that's Theo.
I did that shit in Chechnya already, bro. Yeah, I had that, and then some of the bosses in Vietnam at Saigon Sport Clubs they were some OGs, man. Those guys were cool. I've got to do some pretty cool things there.
Yeah, Chechnya is a very interesting place. Definitely a very interesting place.
I'd go again. If I had the opportunity, I'd go again.
Yeah, from the experience that you had. Yeah, it's crazy.
We got our asses whooped though. Every foreigner that turned up got their ass beat by that Chechnyan grappling. Yeah.
What about I remember before we did the we started recording, there was something else that you were telling me about, something that you wanted to work on as well. Was it this one, or was it any another thing that you were talking about?
Trying to think. There's always lots of things I like to work on.
Yeah, there was something you mentioned to me about, you know, you said you were interested to have a chat with like Eugene and all that.
Okay, so we were talking about the icing.
Oh, okay,
right? And the implications of this stuff. So, and I've just listened to a podcast. So, if anyone interested, this is the Andrew Hubermann Lab podcast. He's a guy who's got his finger on the pulse for a lot of like interesting science on the physiology of the body that's coming out. So, on this podcast, he was discussing new science that's been adopted very quickly by military and not special services, rescue services like firefighters and stuff.
Yes.
And to butcher his intelligent discussion in a nutshell, it's about how to rapidly cool the body. All right. So with exercise, the body starts to overheat. It's a natural byproduct of producing energy and stuff through there. It is the biggest deleterious effect on performance, in the sense that heating up and getting too hot is literally what makes you stop. You might not think I'm overheating and stopping, but you'll naturally start to slow down, which is why you stop in a marathon, you can't go, and these kind of things is because your body's literally overheating. So
hey, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
It's about how efficient you can be at getting rid of excessive heat, which is why as humans we sweat. Right, that's how we naturally get rid of heat and stuff through there, which is why other animals will pant and things like that, because they can't sweat it just as much. But the research is talking. So you would think that chucking someone in an ice bath would be the most effective way of cooling the core body temperature. And there's a new way that they've discovered, because of the anatomy of the body, that's far less effort and far more effective, which is you bypass certain areas of the body where you have to transmit heat when you use in your face, the palms of your hands, and the bottom of your feet. They're way more effective at transferring heat than any other part of the body. So they've done studies, and I need to read the studies. This is just a discussion I've heard, which as I was listening to this, I was like, man, there's some pretty amazing implications for cornering in MMA fights, let alone just conditioning training for martial arts, which is, they had someone do, I think, max dips or max pull-ups. I think it was max dips in that day, and they could do 60 or whatever it was with how many sets in between. And on the second day, they got them straight back, and you would think normally that would be a bit fatigued and harder to do. But this time, in between sets, when they were resting, they would rapidly cool the hands and the feet. So they would put their hands in below temperature water. So it's not quite ice. You're not holding onto a block of ice, but they would cool the feet, the hands, and the face. And the recovery was amazing. And they increased strength 2 to 3-fold. They did 2 to 3 times more repetitions after that. So he talks about the physiology of why you bypass areas for cooling through the hands, the face, and the feet. But you know, when we have a corner and we'll come in and fight in between rounds, and we'll put ice and we'll try to cool their shoulders and their chest. if you have the fighter passing it, and obviously boxing you can't do it,
Yeah,
but like
'cause you have
MMA
gloves
gloves,
on,
you
yeah.
have pads at the palm.
Poles, yeah.
But I'm wondering about the implications of doing it on the feet, transferring back and forth to the feet, back and forth to the hands, and even just a quick pass over there.
On the face,
So for this morning, for example, in the sauna, when I came out and I go and hit the cold shower next door, normally I just sit under the shower. This time I focused on the shower hitting my face and my hands, and then I would turn around and make sure it was hitting my feet. It's very subjective, but it felt like it was cooling me a lot quicker. The science seems to back that up to the point where, like I said, military and fire rescue services have taken this up because they get exposed to extreme heat conditions as well. So he talks about it from an endurance point of view. People running could have a cold frozen bottle, take that off their hip, pass that between their hands to cool the temperature and recover that quite quickly.
Isn't that also why during in between boxing rounds usually you see this happens with
Pouring
the
water?
yeah. You see what happens with a lot of the Mexican fighters do that. They'll pour water on the head.
Yeah, you're trying to cool your fighter down, right? That's essentially what you're doing. Now, the most effective way, scientifically proven to cool someone down, is by bypassing the capillaries by using the hands, the feet, and the face. So in most fighting, you'll be barefoot, right?
Yes.
Unless you're boxing, I guess.
Yeah, unless you're boxing.
So in boxing, you don't have access to the face. So why not get a really almost cold, frozen, damp cloth and just obviously they've got the cut man. There's more to it than just this. But even in between rounds of the spider training that we do or hard conditioning rounds, as the person's recovering, if they have a cold, not quite, because you don't want it to be frozen, right? Because then you'll constrict the blood vessels too much and you'll lose grip strength and stuff like that. You find the right amount of cooling. I think it begs to be investigated a lot more on. And so I want to have a chat with a few people with this huge. I'm going to chat to you about this at some point.
Eugene.
And anyone who's interested, I think
talking about it makes a lot of sense. That cold, that damp cloth.
Yeah.
And then just kind of
when you're cold, what do you want the most? You want gloves and socks on because that's where you'll expel body heat and absorb body heat the most.
Yeah, and that's when you're cold, that's where it's you feel
it's
the coldest. Your hands.
Yeah, because
your
the blood will go from the peripheries to heat up the core. So it goes away from the outer passes and to heat up the core.
Man, that's so cool. That's actually very interesting.
So that's one way that we can leverage physiology for performance. And that's what these are the things I find super interesting. And we were talking about collagen before and sort of having a source of that in your body and in your diet, but that's another way to leverage certain nutrients to make sure they're going to be delivered to the right areas of the body. Now the delivery process depends on how you move more than anything, right?
Yeah, we're talking about diets, and I think the other one that we talked about the other time was the carnivore diet. We talked about in one of our the physio sessions that we were doing. And you talked to me about I can't remember what's his name. This
Mark
guy.
Sisson.
Yes,
I know
Mark
we've been
Sisson,
talking about metabolic flexibility.
Yes, and he was talking about that, and that was really interesting. Can you share? I don't want to butcher.
No, you're right.
Can you share with us a video there?
Well, carnivore particularly is more about, I think, a food elimination diet. If you're only just eating this protein, you're going to not be eating a whole lot of other things that your body can have inflammatory reactions to. But what we were discussing more was about metabolic flexibility, right? So your metabolism is how much does it cost for your body to maintain itself at rest, right? So me and my size that I'm currently at costs X amount of energy right now for Theo just to maintain himself. That's my metabolic rate. And that's why if you eat way more than you're burning off to maintain yourself or exercising, you'll typically put on weight. And if you're eating less than your cost to maintain yourself or exercising, you will typically lose weight, right? That's a very simple way with way more nuance to it than that. But your metabolism will take in fuel that you've eaten, burn it, right? Or break it down into its constituent parts to create energy and rebuild itself. And then you poop out the byproduct. What your body uses for fuel is very interesting. And that's the difference between carbohydrates and glucose is the preferred fuel source for the body because it's quick and easy to use, or lipids and fats. So fat metabolism and a bit of protein metabolism in there as well. You'll metabolize everything, but your body likes to primarily use one or two fuel sources to get the metabolism to processes to happen, to create energy and that. A lot of us, because of common dietary lifestyle, are really efficient at burning glucose and calories as a primary fuel source. And a lot of us don't train or haven't trained the metabolism to be able to switch to fat as a primary fuel source. And so Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint, his books on that, is a really good explanation of how to build that metabolic flexibility and the plethora of important things that happen from a health point of view that happen with that. So this is where you have to be careful as athletes, because you do need a lot of carbohydrates. You do need the right amount. But for a lot of people that are there interested in health and losing weight, it's a lot of them haven't trained their metabolism to be able to switch to fat as a fuel source. And if you think of the body and its infinite wisdom over millions of years of evolution, it has been designed to be effective at burning stored energy, which is fat. Right? We never had constant access to food all the time. Sometimes we were successful at hunting and foraging, sometimes less successful. So we were a bit more designed to find food and gorge on it when it was ripe and available, and then store the excess energy as a very efficient form of battery on your stomach and your hips, generally closer to the center of mass, and then it spreads out further if you get a lot of storage, right? Unfortunately, some people are like that. So your body is literally storing excessive energy. The issue is when you're always used to burning glucose and carbohydrates from different forms of carbohydrates, and if you don't know what the hierarchy to carbohydrates are, I would highly recommend learning a little bit about that. There's a big difference between the different types of carbohydrates and how they impact your body. If your body always has access to carbohydrates, it is not as effective at then metabolizing and breaking down fat, which you have excess stored on you. So learning how to leverage that is quite an important thing. And that's what Mark's talks, and that's what intermittent fasting can be a really powerful tool because
we talked about that as well.
When you go through periods of not eating, your body has to be like, okay, we're in a little bit of, you don't want to call it starvation mode, but we're a little bit more of like nothing's coming in mode. Can we access what's there and, use and burn that up? But if you haven't trained your body because it always has glucose and you haven't taught it to use fat as a fuel source by eating higher things in fat and protein and less in carbohydrates, that's what ketosis are. Ketosis is when your body is burning fat as a primary fuel source. And the byproduct of that is your liver, I believe it is, produces ketones, which is very healthy for the brain, very healthy for a bunch of different things. A cool analogy that I've thought of is, think of it like if your metabolism is like a fireplace and you want heat and good things coming off the fire. Carbohydrate can be a lot more like kindling or thin sticks. It burns really hot, it burns really quickly, but it leaves a lot of ash behind, right? Whereas like if you can have your metabolic flexibility, or you can get your metabolism trained to burning a lot more fat and then a bit and the proteins as well, but if you can get it to really use fat effectively, it's like a log on the fire. It might not burn as quick and as hot, which is why glucose is really important for explosive performance. That's why if you're doing that a lot, you don't want to just be in keto as an explosive athlete, I think. This is where like going outside of my realm. Oh, I just cramped up. There we go. But the principle is still there, is like, so if you are going through periods of trying to eat the same amount of food but over a shortened window, so you're intermittent fasting, can you break that fast with things that are going to train your metabolism to access more fat? Right? So you make a gangster omelet with spinach and mushrooms and eggs, or you do, and you can find vegan sources of this and stuff like that as you can as well, but you'll typically you have carbohydrates inside vegetables and stuff as well. So you do need to be mindful of it. It's just the difference between bread and pasta, really.
Sorry.
You're good.
Refill your water.
Thank you.
Which one would you like, bro?
Whatever.
Whatever?
Yep.
Red one, purple
Yep.
one?
Whatever's in whatever you have in excess, bro. I'll take one of them.
You can choose whichever you like, brother.
Give me that purple stuff.
Purple one? Yeah, I might try the purple one as well. It's not the one that I usually have, but
Yep.
I have that. I really should be sponsored by vitamin water, I think, bro.
I thought you were, bro. What I've seen of the podcast, the little clips there, it's like perfect product placement.
I just love vitamin water. And instead of giving people like, fucking sugary drinks and soft drinks and whatever.
Don't get it twisted. This is sugar, bro.
There is, but like,
This is a little bit of a salesman tactic, bro. I'm not going to lie to you, bro. Shall we go? So this is one good thing. If you want to learn about your health, learn about ingredients, learn to read your labels.
22 grams is nothing, bro. 22 grams.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not too bad, but I mean, you talk about average drinks, you're talking about like 40, 50 grams of sugar. That's a lot, man. Well, and we're very active people as well anyway.
Yep.
So like we probably need, and
you need the energy.
Yeah, I'm
sure.
quite the sweet tooth myself, and I just find if I don't have that sugar, man, I struggle, bro.
Yeah.
Like you just feel
Because
tired.
it could be because you're not metabolized to processing fat, or you're not, if you don't have the sugar, you have to have a very rich source of fat. So this is where people go wrong, is they'll starve themselves and switch food sources. You know, it's like I want you to eat so much fat and protein that you're just like, whoa, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, that can be very dangerous. Like that's one of the things as well. Like when I was younger, you know, it helped me like because I was really skinny and stuff, so I wanted to like gain weight. So everybody tells you to, you know, you buy your mass gainer, you buy your whey protein.
Uni, bro. That's how I got to 95 kilos. And I was just like, give me all the protein, the mass gainer.
It did help.
Yeah, but eventually it'll start costing you. It'll start
Exactly,
wrecking your
bro.
digestive system. You're not getting the fiber that you need. You're not getting the enzymes from all the different food groups
What's it with the really smelly fats as well? That's the other one. You have like a really high protein.
This is a really good indicator of health. One of the first things that I learned, and it's probably one of the most important things, is your digestive system. If your digestive system isn't functioning very well, you have compromised immune function. You're not going to be breaking down nutrients from your foods as properly. Your hormones that you produce, like 70% of your neurotransmitters are made in the gut. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers for your brain. 80% of your immune system resides in the gut. So if you have digestive distress, you're in trouble. Like before you worry about any supplements, before you worry about any other aspect of your health, if your stomach and your digestion isn't doing right, you need to learn how to sort that out first, right? And it's not always as simple as just taking probiotics. But that's a good start. Learn about why you need to take probiotics and then how you feed the probiotics good bacteria and fibers. And if you're like, well, what does that mean? How do I know if my gut's not right? If you're not regular with your shits and your shits aren't fucking good, you know when you're pooping clean and well, and when you're not pooping clean. It seems weird, but know your poop. Yeah. Like if you can know your poop and you're regular and you're on time and it's coming out clean and efficient. But if you're doing like doink farts all the time and like it's sludging out, like you'll know after you've had a bender, like. Pay attention to your toilet habits and like you're in distress here because you've just basically fed it poison, which is literally your body trying to expel everything. Yeah. So learning how your digestion works and what your bathroom habits are in relation to like what kind of foods you've been eating, how much and when, I think is really powerful. The more in tune you can be with that, the closer you'll be to health.
But the other thing as well is like not many people are exposed to like getting access to a dietitian, asking these, you
don't need one. If I'm perfectly honest, if you're trying to expertly weight cut and these kind of things, then yes, you need someone to count things. And like for some people, it's like a lot of people can learn about a really healthy shoulder without necessarily having to come to me. I'm just really good at like going straight to the source, which is what you go to a dietitian for. But man, like the amount of free information and incredible discussions there are out there from people who are breaking these topics down.
There's a lot. You just got to search.
You can learn. There's a lot. Yeah. You have to be interested, but there's a lot of downtime, which is why podcasts, right? This format of discussion is so great because someone could be listening to us right now on their car on their drive to work for their 15, 20-minute commute. And then they're downloading information or they're being involved in a discussion that they're generally interested in or that they're extracting a lot of information from. I would say that's a huge part of my knowledge base is I've just been a fanatic listening to podcasts and then I like this person, I like what they're saying, I like how they're saying it. So I'll be like, all right, I'll follow them on media or they've got a book. Fantastic. Let me get that book. Can I read this book? Maybe I'm better off listening to it on an audio book because I just don't have the time. Or I really like this book. I want it on my shelf. I want to be able to flick through the pages. You just branch out in your knowledge base. You go to this guy's podcast and you hear this person and then you listen to this. Obviously you're going to always listen to this podcast, right?
Of course.
So this is where you start. But like it's called autodidact, like self-educated in that sense because so much of this information is free. After Jamie passed away, I tried to finish, we were in another fight camp. I tried to finish that fight camp and I even had Tojo came and stayed with me with like the Master Yoda of kickboxing in New Zealand to help me finish through. Fucking week before that fight, guess what happened? Guy pulled out again. And I was just like, this is my third camp in a row with someone pulling out. And I'd done a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments, so I was used to like kind of getting the exam at the end of the test, at the end of the study. So I was like, screw this. And I was just, like you were saying, like, are we meant just to, you just go on with your normal life, like after foul, like it just feels weird. You can't quite do that. So I was really stuck and my sister had an opportunity. She was working in the super yachts. And one of the boats had been put into the harbour to be fixed in Italy. And she's like, do you want to come here and do something different? And I was like, yep. She's like, you got any building mates that can come help us? And I was like, yep. So me and 5 of my best mates from Gizzy lived on the Italian coast fixing this boat.
Oh,
Some of it wasn't glorious. Some of it was amazing work. I got to drive through Monaco and the south of France picking up shit. And then there was days where I was just grinding rust, like in the Mediterranean summer in a full suit, just dripping wet. But dude, I loved it. It was just like thoughtless
experience.
Just mine. Like I was just able just to reflect on my thoughts, and I didn't have to do anything but grind rust. And while I was doing that, I was downloading information. I listened to just hundreds of podcasts over that time. Hours. 8 hours a day of podcasts. And then at lunchtime, we would all discuss and chat about these things.
Exactly,
and then,
bro.
And dude, it's pretty incredible. Like, I'm not saying you have to be grinding rust for 8 hours to listen to a podcast. But like when you mow your lawns, when you do the dishes, if you have the opportunity, fill up that time to listen to people talking about these things. You could go pay someone to do this for you. But at the end of the day, you're the ones that has to make those decisions on when you eat, what you eat, how you eat. And the more informed you can be of that understanding, the better decisions you'll make with your food on when to maybe not break your fast. Or no, I need to because I've got this cognitive demanding task. Or, I felt tired. I started my day with Wheat Bix and cereal. And that's why I reached for another muffin when I had a coffee at 10 o'clock, I'm having a 3 or 4 o'clock coffee in the afternoon. If you're not aware how caffeine works because you haven't listened to someone talk about it, you may be stuck in a cycle of over caffeine dependence and shitty sleep.
Talking about caffeine, sorry to interrupt you there. Talking about caffeine, you told me earlier on today you're on a no caffeine, strict diet.
Everyone's at home like, fuck you, Theo, don't take my coffee away from me. Don't you talk shit about my coffee.
What's with the no coffee, bro? Tell us.
I'm just taking a step back from caffeine a little bit. So I'll cycle caffeine.
Okay.
Instead of like always caffeine all my life. It's like anything. When you have a compound, you have receptors in your body that bind to it and do shit with it. Those receptors can become desensitized to it because it's just there all the time. That's the problem with insulin, right? With sugar. When people have always carbohydrates and sugar, the insulin stops being sensitive to it. So your body either can't produce the right amount or it doesn't acknowledge it's there. That's when you're diabetic. Caffeine, pretty much everything has this kind of effect on us. The issue with caffeine is it can block the signals of being tired, so that your body doesn't start shutting down and getting into the deep and the important stages of sleep. So caffeine has the same molecular structure as adenosine, which is what it binds to. All you need to know is that if you have caffeine later in the day in the afternoon, a large part of that caffeine is still in your system when you're trying to sleep. So normally the byproduct of being awake, right, is you produce this compound called adenosine, which when bound to the receptor, your body's like, oh, okay, we've been awake for quite a while now. The sun's probably going down. It's time to start sort of getting the system ready for shutdown and recovery. Because it's the only time you recover, right, is when you sleep. That's like the other most fundamental, important pillar of health. I used to think it was movement, nutrition, and sleep. After you learn enough about sleep, you'll realize that sleep is the pillar upon which movement and nutrition rest. If sleep's wobbly and dodgy, you're going to really be messing up the other things. And there's too many guys out there that train like professionals and recover like complete amateurs. And there's people who aren't even professional that train like professionals, right? A lot of people in the fight game train super hard, and that's like a very endearing quality, and you need to build that mental fortitude and the skill set. Exactly. But people do themselves such a disservice, man. They hamstring themselves by not recovering properly. So how does caffeine fit into that? So that byproduct of being awake throughout the day, you get that compound, and then you start to shut down and get ready for sleep. Caffeine binds to that receptor, so your body doesn't feel that signal of tiredness. So when you have coffee in the morning, you feel super alert. Coffee, I don't actually think gives you any energy. It just blocks the signals of fatigue. The problem is that caffeine has a half-life of, I think, like 8 to 12 hours. Ooh. Half-life meaning halfway through at half of 12, the caffeine is still in your system. So 6 hours on from taking coffee, half of that caffeine is still in your system. So I have a caffeine curfew. So by lunchtime, no more coffee.
Wow.
So I'll have my morning coffee typically, and that'll keep me going because I've just gotten better at it. And then if I'm really struggling, 10, 11. But if I have a 3 o'clock coffee, I know I'm quite sensitive and it's going to impact my sleep. So, and then some people are just smashing caffeine before trainings all the time and stuff. So you do have to be mindful on how it's impacting your sleep. And you're like, yeah, I still get to sleep. It's like, you get to sleep, but are you reaching the deep stages of recovery? I'm not saying it stops you sleeping. I'm saying it impacts the beneficial aspects of sleep.
That's very interesting because, like, I mean, think about it. If, like, for example, for someone like myself who does a very physical job, like, so you start of the day, I'm smashing a coffee already.
Yeah.
Like early morning, boom,
Question,
coffee.
do you have any water before you have your first coffee?
Yes,
Good.
I have 2 glasses of water, like every morning. So
Good.
I have my 1 full glass of water, and then I have a glass of vitamin C.
Nice,
You
okay.
have the tablets, put it in.
The water's important, man, because
two-
people just put rocket fuel in the engine and go. It's like, no,
yeah.
just
It's too much.
start the engine first, bro. You don't go cold, put pedal to the
Yeah,
metal.
bro, too much, too fast. That's
flush the
not.
system.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, and then like you because it's a very physical job, like half day. Usually by lunch you're like, man, you're feeling tired already, so you're like, hey, another coffee.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. And then you finish that day, you're tired again. Now, man, I got to go training now.
Yeah.
I need energy to train.
Yes.
So boom, we smash the third coffee.
You need that energy to come for a more efficient delivery of fuel.
I started to realize after a while, I was like, man, this is not the best way to be going about how much coffee I'm taking in a day, bro.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've slept fine like at night, but again,
But you're waking up tired.
Yes.
Because you're not getting to those deep stages of sleep. So what do you need? You need a coffee. And because you've had that alertness early on, you're going to need it throughout the day. So typically in this equation, I reckon it's about playing with adding in more food, add in more fat, protein, and a little bit of good carbohydrate, right? Not refined carbohydrate into your food.
I changed things up a little bit and I felt it was a little bit better. But also the thing was what I noticed.
Pre-training snack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I noticed was when you keep having too much coffee, you'll start to feel like the coffee is not working for me anymore.
Sure.
You know, like, because like what you said, when your body gets too
you reset from it.
Yeah, and then so what you're doing now, I kind of understand like why you are doing this whole cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so cool. Maybe I should actually give that a go as well.
Play with it, and caffeine withdrawal is serious. Like people actually get headaches and feel like shit and almost get flu-like symptoms. If you've never not had caffeine and you just go cold turkey on it, there's a reason why like alcoholics will die if they don't have alcohol. Like withdrawals are that bad. So what I would do is, first of all, I have a delicious decaf. So I don't for me, it's about like the taste and the warm cup. It's the association with coffee as much as anything.
People are gonna get angry when you say decaf, right?
if you haven't tried it properly, yeah. And like, so try like even just like 1 day on, 1 day off, or like 2 days off a week, 5 days on. Like find a cycle that works for you till eventually you can do week on, week off. If you can do month on, month off, all good. But coffee is actually good. It's a performance enhancing supplement. It's actually shown to have anti-cancerous properties and a bunch of other things. So coffee itself is good. It's just like, don't be jacked up on caffeine the whole time. There is an epidemic of V consumption and shit amongst gyms, y'all.
Oh, yo, tell me about it,
It's
man.
bad, man. But so that's just caffeine and sugar to the extreme. But like that's the amount of caffeine you get in an energy drink. It's just soaring through your system by the next day. So if you're like, no, I just can't do without it. It's like, trust me, your system can. And there's high-level functioning athletes out there that can. It's because you haven't figured out the right amount of macronutrients for you, your right amount of fat, carb, and protein. You're not eating enough or timing enough at the right days. You should be able to train like an athlete without having a gross addiction to caffeine. You'll have an addiction to caffeine, but a gross over-reliance on caffeine, I should say.
That's what I noticed.
Start playing with it and notice your sleep differences.
It's very dangerous, like all this energy drinks, bro. There used to be a period
really
in
bad,
time,
dude.
Yeah, bro. There used to be a period of time where I was like having it every day, and then I started to understand a little bit more about it, and I was like, yo, this is not good, man.
It's not good.
It's like death in a can, bro.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, it's sugar-free, I'm good. It's like, no, man, there's sugar in that. Like your body is producing insulin in response to whatever fake sugars are in there.
That's in there,
or even natural stevia and shit. Your body still responds for sure. Like a bit of manuka honey is going to be the best form of that in the morning, but it's still going to get your blood glucose going up. And then the problem is when you're on that train, it comes back down. And so the crash, because when you have a large influx of sugar and glucose in the body, your body has to produce insulin to do something with it. It can't sit in the bloodstream, it's toxic. So it either goes to the muscles and get used straight away, or it gets taken out of the bloodstream and stored. So you have insulin in response to that. The problem is it goes up, insulin comes in and it crashes. And you're chasing this thing throughout the day, which is why people will, if they start with a very high sugary breakfast, cereal, a lot of cereal is dessert for breakfast. We just haven't clicked onto that for a lot of people. You'll crash a little bit afterwards. Your blood sugar comes down, I should say, instead of a crash. So your body's like, ooh, what's going on? So we reach for a convenient, quick source of fuel, which is some shitty protein bar, some some kind of carbohydrate muffin type snack.
Convenience, right?
Convenience costs though, my bro. Like it does. And like, I'm not saying like I never have this kind of stuff or have days when it's like that, but I'm just trying to find that balance better and better every time.
Definitely.
And if you can be more in tune with your body and your sleep cycles, then that's really important. So learning about the sleep cycles is really big.
Yeah,
there's more to it than just caffeine consumption. The other biggest factor there is light pollution and how that affects you.
Light pollution. Okay,
I got to pee like a pregnant woman. Can I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Feel free to cut that out of the podcast. So another really big factor on sleep, and this is one of the hardest things for me. So again, anything I talk about and discuss, it's not like I'm someone who's got it perfect and figured it out. I'm just aware of it because generally I've struggled with it. That's why I'm okay to coach people about joint health and mobility, because I've always been stiff as a board and broken in so many places. That's why I qualify to talk about it, because I'm working on it. So the biggest one for me, the biggest battle is about light pollution and how that affects your sleep and recovery.
I'm sorry, Theo, just get you move a little bit closer to my. Yeah, sorry.
Up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've expressed how important sleep is. There's way more things I could tell about how important it is to try and convince people, but let me just leave it at the fact that it is literally how you recover your hormones for the upcoming day. It's the Matthew Walker in his book, Sleep. It's amazing, really, to be honest, if you want to learn about it. He's got a great book on all these podcasts. He's got a good Joe Rogan as well, where they talk about it, which is why I found out to him and then read his book. But he talks about how the scientific literature has shown that even just the state of being awake is low-level brain damage. The byproducts of your brain having to work all day causes negative byproducts, and those are only repaired and recovered during sleep, right? The beta amyloid plaques, the damaging components that are found in people's brains with Alzheimer's, dementia, which is a bigger risk for the fight community because of concussions and knocks. The only thing that has been shown to get rid of those beta amyloid plaques has been found to be in the deep stages of REM sleep. So if you're not getting into that deeper stage of sleep, we were talking about one because of caffeine and alcohol and a bunch of things that stop you getting in there effectively, you're not going to be recovering the damage. So from an energy point of view, from a hormones as in like how your body functions and how you feel for the next day, and then from a damage point of view, your sleep is the most important factor. I talked about how caffeine can impact that. The other one can do it is light pollution. The easy way to think about it is over millions of years of evolution before electricity. I don't know, it was 700, 300 years ago? How long was electricity invented?
I know the number, but I just can't.
Right?
Yeah,
Industrial Revolution, 700 years ago. So I don't know what electricity is. Someone's probably screaming on the other end of this, being like, "You fucking idiots!"
Well, we all.
Bro, isn't that interesting though? Because sometimes you think it was like 700 years ago, and it was like 150 or 200 years ago.
Yeah, it's not that long.
It's not that long ago.
There's a few things that I recently was listening to a lot of stuff, and there were a few things that are actually not as it doesn't go as far back as we thought it was.
Yeah, like you think Picasso is from like the 14th century. It's like, no, he was alive a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, bro.
Less than that. Anyway, talking about the light. So because of natural evolution, Homo sapien been around for millions of years, we've always raised with the sun because we could see, we're not night creatures, and then we would go to sleep with the setting sun. So the circadian rhythm, the rhythm of the day-night cycle, has always ruled our bodies and our hormones and how our bodies adapt to it, okay? The problem is now is we have artificial light. We have literally fake suns inside our house, right? This is what's lighting us now, especially the blue spectrum. That's why if you look at that it's quite bright. You can't stare at the sun too much. This is screaming daytime at us. So the issue being now is as the sun starts to set and normally your body starts to go through, getting ready for sleep cycles and those hormones are starting to change. It's cortisol and serotonin. Cortisol and melatonin are the two hormones. Awake, daytime, I'm ready to go. That's cortisol. Okay. So cortisol is, people think of it as a stress hormone. It's just like awake and alertness hormone. Melatonin is the get good sleep hormone. It's not just get to sleep, it's the get good sleep hormone. So as the sun starts to set and you start to reduce exposure to light, you're increasing the melatonin. Your body will naturally start to produce the right amount of melatonins to switch you into that stages of sleep, and cortisol will go down as melatonin goes up. And as you wake up in the morning and you expose yourself to light and sunlight and you start getting awake, and that's why like exercise in the morning can be really good because it spikes your cortisol. So you're doing the inverse of relationship and you're ready to go. which is also why getting exposure to sunlight first thing in the morning is very important. People just wake up from their house and they go. They don't actually get the vitamin D and the conversion from the sun itself. The rays from the sun are very important. So if you can get at least 20 minutes of direct sunlight onto your skin for immune function, a whole bunch of other things, really important. Have your morning coffee outside, even if it's cold. Try not have it through a window. Try being direct sunlight, even if it's overcast.
Yeah, for someone who, especially if you're someone who works indoors all
Yeah,
day,
Yep.
you know,
It's a real problem.
the importance of like being outside, like
Yep.
it's a huge thing.
Yep.
Like, but for me, I'm outside all the time anyway.
Yeah,
So like I have a lot of it. So sometimes I just wish I was inside, bro. You know.
Especially when you're hanging onto a building, it's a howling gale out there, bro, and you're just like desperately ripping your shoulder out with a squeegee.
I know, bro. It's crazy. But yeah, it's funny, right? Like when you think about it, you know, people who are outside want to be inside.
It's a big problem. So people in like the North American countries where because of the equator, they get much less daylight, right? There's periods where they only get 2 hours of daylight a day or whatever it is. It's a depression and anxiety related to that is a huge thing because it fucks with the hormones. It screws up your hormonal equation for you to be able to have a regular balance between certain things because of the lack of daylight exposure. So they'll have little LED light diodes that they can put into the receptors of the ears because it's very sensitive and try and stimulate that light. The biggest issue I see for people and the strategies where they go wrong, and myself included because I'm a gamer, love to game. Shout out to the Sweaty Squad. Those are my boys. I play with them all the time. It's my thing. I love to do it. But people love content, right? We'll watch screens, TVs, whatever your poison is. We're generally going to have our attention taken by some kind of device, and that's fine. The issue is that device emits blue light, a lot of blue light, which is the spectrum of light that has been shown to suppress melatonin the most. So as the sun goes down and your body normally starts to raise its melatonin, getting ready for the sleep, you're blasting it with daylight and you're suppressing the amount of melatonin released. They've done some studies where the eyes are the most sensitive because they have the largest proportion of photoreceptors, so they take in light photons. But we also have them on our skin. They've done studies where they put people to sleep and they put a small LED and taped it to the back of their knee. And then as they slept, they recorded the amount of melatonin stuff they produced and found that there was suppressed huge amounts, 40%, I believe, of suppression of melatonin. It's also why if you wake up in the middle of the night and check your phone, it's just like blasted by it because it's fake daylight being shot at you. And like, so I hate going to the bathroom and have my light on. So in my room, I have Himalayan salt lamps just because it's like a nice soft orange glow. So you don't have to flick a giant bright light on just before bed because you don't want to be screaming daytime just before you go to sleep. Nighttime.
Yeah, like that whole switch light off and then go to sleep. So
there's other strategies. So like on my computer, I've got
that night mode. Isn't that why a lot of PCs now they have that?
Yep, 100%. And then it takes out the blue spectrum and gives you an orange glow. So like straight away you feel your eyes relax. Mine's called f.lux and it comes on it. It's still light and it's still not the best. That's why when you go camping, you're asleep by like 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah, real early.
Because the sun's down. It's been down for 2 hours. So the issue for me is I'll play games till late or I'll watch content or whatever like that. And then it's like, all right, time to shut down because I think I'm a creature of the night. But I think what I've done is just developed habits where I stay up late, right? Like the rest of us.
That's that's one thing I tried to because like it's when you have a lot of work to do or you want to do work.
You want that unwind time at the end as well.
Yeah, you know, and I found myself in like this. I need to tell myself to stop and go to sleep and rest. Because like when I start something, I want to keep going and I have this. I don't know if it's a like
obsessive compulsive. We all are on certain degrees,
and like
I think so.
When like it's really dangerous sometimes because like when I start something, I'll make sure that I want to do it till I get it done. And sometimes like some of the things that I do might take a very long time. So like and then ends up in having like lack of sleep, you know, stuff like that. And then you know I started to realize that was a very dangerous you know hole that I was falling into. So I was like, nah, at least minimum every day I want to have my if worst case scenario I want my 6 hours. You know, I think isn't that what they say as well that like the bare minimum you really need to have.
And even then hours, I think the scientific literature seems to report 7 to 8.
Yeah, I think 8 is the ideal.
I sleep 9 to 10 hours sometimes, yo. Straight up.
Man. Yeah, that's good, bro. Like, I enjoy, you know, just having those days where you can just like have that, you know, 9-10 hours
It's
of sleep.
one area of my life I no longer compromise on. I can still be really silly and go to bed far too late, but I'll try my best to prioritize like good sleep as much as anything because it makes the biggest difference.
Do you use anything to record like you know how they have like the
the Aura Ring would be the thing I would go for.
Yes.
I know the UFC boys got given them when they came back. If none of you are using it, Holler
Yeah. Hey guys, stop letting your body go on in pain and feeling sore all the time, man. Start putting some deposits in your health bank and take care of your vessel. Go get yourself an amazing massage gun from Sharpened Recovery. It's a very affordable and lasts a long time. Highly recommended. It probably costs less than 5 meals outside and definitely cheaper than a pair of shoes. Instead of getting something that's going to be on your feet, why not get this massage gun to massage those feet and legs? Go to sharpenedrecovery.com and use the code AliChannel for 20% off your guns. Yes, 20%. You can thank me later. So what are you waiting for, guys? Go get yourself some amazing gear.
I've thought about it quite a bit, and like I was saying, like things like the Aura Ring do really interest me because it's a lot of tracking things. There's two schools of thought with that. There's the biohacker, the bioneer, they call them, that love like measuring all the metrics and things like that.
It's like the whoop straps. And
Yeah,
all that stuff,
which can be a really powerful strategy because if you can measure it, you can change it, which is quite a cool thing. Honestly, I try and intuitively just go by how I feel. Like, where's my energy? Where's my mood? Am I more irritable? Am I hungry? Am I reaching for foods that I normally wouldn't reach for, right? Am I going for like a really like delicious pie or stuffed bun or something like that, as opposed to like a more, like I said, protein, fat, carbohydrate rich food and something like that. So I try and go for that more than just measuring. It's not to say that I haven't. I've used an HRV monitor before, because that's a pretty good indicator if you're overtraining or not, how your variability is doing between your nervous system and your heart rate. So yeah, you can use a bunch of different ones out there. I always encourage people to research a little bit, just even to read a few articles and reviews on them, because some aren't as good as you think they are. And I don't like, I try not have unnecessary exposure to Bluetooth and recording things, especially when you're sleeping. If you can, if I could have my room blacked out from Wi-Fi signals by putting this black matting in the wall, I would. But like, and the other point on this, which I think is important to discuss, is like, an Aura Ring is like maybe $400 US. Like, it's not a cheap device.
Yeah, it is quite pricey.
You can get some things that you put on your phone and you put it under your mattress. I don't ever want to sleep with my phone in my room, if I'm honest. Or if I do, put it on airplane mode, so it's not constantly receiving. So
how do you wait? You don't sleep with your phone in your room. No. So what kind of alarm do you use?
My partner sleeps with hers in the room, and I can't change that. I started trying to use this watch and the alarm. She doesn't like it. And she has a nice alarm on her phone, but I try and always make sure hers is on airplane mode. But that's also the issue, right? Is we don't have actual alarms and stuff there. So just put your phone on airplane mode, so it's not beeping and bothering you and receiving
notifications and stuff like
that.
But
the point I wanted to make is there's a lot of like these strategies that we discuss from a health point of view. There's always like a high-end variant, which is going to be very expensive, and there's always like a low-end simple strategy. People always look for what they can pay for things without applying the free and easy strategy. So it's called go for the low-hanging fruit. Right? If there's a ripe tree that you're like, oh, I like the look of that, I know someone's told me it's delicious, I'm gonna go try it. You're not gonna reach for the fruit at the top that you have to climb all these things for. That's the cost. Go for the low-hanging fruit first. And so in the case, we're talking about this guy with cryotherapy and stuff. So like cold immersion, and we talked about the cold packs and stuff. That's an amazing strategy to implement for people. Ice bathing with your Wim Hof. That's the low-hanging fruit. Learning how to breathe, which is free and available to you. And there's hundreds and hundreds of different podcasts and discussions and articles on that. Dunking in some cold water or turning the cold shower there. You don't have to spend $60 on a cryotherapy thing. Now, it's not to say going to full body cryo wouldn't be an amazing experience for you. And if you could do that regularly, would you be better off? Probably. But the low hanging fruit is that. So paying attention to how you feel and being more in tune with your body, to me, is more valuable than just buying a sleep measuring device. It's not to say that couldn't be a very powerful strategy for you. It could be more powerful for you than for me, depending on how you are and how you work. But like, don't let the cost be a barrier to figuring out your sleep.
Just trying to fix some stuff as well. Yeah, that's crazy. I think that's one of the struggles in like this day and age. It's like everybody's trying to do a lot of things. Yeah. In a limit, you only have 24 hours in a day. Yeah. And you're trying to do as much as you can, and you're forgetting that sleep, and in the long run, it's
an investment into the health account. That's really it. Like, it's the best deposit into the health account. But learning about sleep strategies, that's an investment, because it means you're just going to get more deposits. You're going to get more deposits every time. It's like getting a bigger paycheck. It's like a pay rise because you're investing in it. Same thing with figuring out like your shoulder pain and learning on how that works and working on the mobility. That's an investment because it means every time you do a withdrawal from the account and you do some dynamic movements, there's not as high an interest rate on it because it's working well. You've taught it to work well.
Definitely, man. Oh, well, anyway, Theo, we've come to the section now. Wise words from the wise man. Hey. So, Theo, for the people watching, listening, if you can give them some advice, man, what would it be?
Shit. Well, if you haven't listened to anything I've said so far,
that's already a lot.
Well, try.
Yeah.
I would go back to that same point. It's just like invest in yourself. You know, take care of yourself like you're someone that you're responsible for taking care of. Even if you love your family more than you and you have to take care of other people, invest in yourself so that you can be better for them. Learn how each little system fits into the whole. And it could just be like the whole thing I've ranted on this whole time might be a bit overwhelming for people. It's the first time they've heard about it, or they might have touched on a few of these topics and be like, all right, I'm going to learn a little bit more about sauna and cold or sleeping, and I'm going to be a bit more aware about my caffeine. Just like add little tidbits throughout the day. Like listen to someone, read an article on something, like be a studied person, because we're in an unprecedented time in history to have access to content like that. You have the Library of Alexandria in your phone. If you wanted to be a knowledgeable about something in the past, you had to go to extreme lengths to get it. It's there really is minimum excuse for ignorance now. It's just a lack of desire because everybody, well, not everybody, but majority of the world has access to a smartphone or the internet and information. So pick up little things and people that you like listening to. Start building a community of people around you that are interested in it, or be the person that introduces it to your community. When you turn up to training or you turn up to work or you turn up to your hangouts, broach the topic on, so you'd be like, man, I've been kind of playing with changing up my coffee a little bit. You know, the last few days I haven't had any after lunch and I think I feel a bit better. And then someone else like, oh yeah, bro, I've been trying this thing. Or make it part of your conversation, make it part of your culture to prioritize health and invest in health and talk about it in a positive way, because that's how we'll all grow from it. And the more people are invested in their health, at some point along the journey, they realize they've got to take care of the planet. You need real nutrients from your soils. So I think like that's kind of why I'm on this journey to do it, because I feel like the more you can get people invested in their own health, and individually we all want to do that because we're selfish creatures, and that's fine. Like take care of yourself. But you'll learn that in order to do that as best as possible or well, you have to take care of everyone else needs a fair chance. Everyone else needs a fair chance. You need to take care of the nutrients. You need to take care of the soil. You need ethical farming practices and the lot. So yeah, invest in yourself.
Yeah, man. That's you know what you said something there about. I think 100% agree. Like with the normalizing talking to your friends about these things. You know, make it like part of your conversations. Like, you know, instead of just like talking about, you know, there's that, the next thing you want to buy, or that pretty girl, or, you know, who you're with, you know, all that little things. Talk about how to improve, like maybe your sleep, or talk about, hey man, like I've tried this new breathing technique from, you know, the breathing guru, Dave, you know, like, and it's like, it helped me in this way, that way, like. Or, you know, hey, I listened to David Neath talk about, like, you know, his mindset and, like, how to do, you know, all these things like that. I think we should have more of that.
100%. And if you're trying to introduce that and all the people that you're with want to talk about is just like shoes and a car or something, or something, or they don't respond to that, find some friends that do. Exactly, I'm not saying get rid of those people, but I'm just saying like try surround yourself by people that challenge you in that way and add to you there, because it's cumulative. It's a compounding thing that grows.
100%. And what I love about doing like stuff like this, you know, having all these podcasts is, you know, I always, you know, for me, how I look at it as well is like, there's so much that people can benefit from, all the people who are on here, like yourself, you know, and there's so much that people can benefit from. But at the end of the day, I feel like sometimes I'm quite selfish. Even if people don't benefit anything, I benefit from it.
That's why Joe Rogan's fucking laughing all the way to the bank. He's just having conversations and getting people from the highest levels of the world talking to him.
Crazy, man. And, you know, for example, one of the things that I think is really important was like, you know, when I did the podcast with Richie Hardcore, Man, that was amazing podcast. But you know, I have a lot of respect for the guy and what he's doing for
Me
like
too.
the community, talking about mental health. And you know, he's just challenging people to talk about things that
Yep.
people don't usually talk about,
Yep.
and to address these things and to
Give them a different lens by which they can view what they're doing as well.
exactly, bro.
man.
Like it's like it's really important. Mental health is really important, man.
Huge.
And if you are not in a good state of like, we talk about sleep, we talk about recovery, training, this, that, all these other things, but like if your head's not, if you think about it, man, if you're not in a good headspace.
And it's easy to fall into that trap, man. And like I've been there. I've dealt with depression and anxiety and suicide and these things here. It's like, which is why I'm such a big proponent to figuring out how to get the small things right. Because when the mind starts going bad or turning against you, or just you're just struggling, it's very easy to fall off these things, and they have a very deleterious effect on the mental state. Because if you're not sleeping right, you're not getting the right hormones, which is affecting your mood and how you think. Because of that, you're not going to want to train, you're not going to be motivated. Because of that, you're probably going to seek comfort food, which is higher in glucose and spiking these crappy things, which further impacts your sleep and not eating right. And so there's these compounding things. So yes, for sure, you have to look at it from each point of view.
It's a vicious cycle.
But you have to understand how it fits into the whole. And the more awareness you can bring to that, I think the better human you will be, and the better you can be as a contributor to this planet and other people.
Definitely, man. Anyway, Theo, I don't want to keep you on too long. But besides this, you know, your amazing adventures to Mexico, that's going to be very soon. Was it in 3 weeks?
Sí, señor.
3 weeks, yeah. Sí, sí.
I'm going to work on my Spanish.
Yeah, have you brushed up on your Spanish before heading off?
Not as much, no. But I'm fortunate. I do have, because my heritage is French, I've got that in the back pocket.
Yeah.
And I can understand quite a bit of what's going on with Spanish. And I've spent some time in Spanish-speaking areas in like Peru and some South America.
Man.
But I need to touch up on it for sure.
Yeah, definitely have to touch up on that a little bit. But besides that, what are some of the other interesting plans that you have in the near future?
So yeah, it's honestly just to work on these workshops. That's my main goal for now. I'm still going to keep some clients on board and do some like health coaching and performance coaching. And as soon as I come back to New Zealand, I'm going to go back with Gabriel and the team at Physiologic. Shout out to Gabe as well. He's an amazing dude who's helped me a lot.
Because you've been with him for quite a while?
Maybe almost 2 years now. Yeah, I moved to Auckland. He's the perfect opportunity for me developing my physio skills, him and the team there. So that's why if there's anyone who's hurt in the body, go see him and the rest of the team and me when I come back. But there's a reason all the UFC guys get treated by Gabe, because he's a wizard like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, man. When you do launch your program, I'll be probably one of the first few people that will be there to support you, and not only just to support you, but I'm genuinely keen to learn from what you have to share and teach, man. And I'm sure there are a few other people who, you know, close friends of mine who will definitely be interested as well to go.
Means a lot.
But yeah, we will support you, man. Theo, again, before you, you know, head off, I just want to wish you safe travels to Mexico. It is, you know, can be quite a dangerous place, but so can everywhere else, you know, can be a dangerous place as well. And I hope you take care of yourself there. Have a good time, and just put everything, you know, gives you, you know, sometimes you got to take yourself away from, you know, your comfort zones.
That's when I'm at my best.
Yeah, to push yourself. Like, I feel like sometimes, I mean, for myself as well, one of the big things of starting this whole podcast and like moving out of where I previously was in Hamilton, moving to Auckland and doing all of this, was to get myself out of that comfort zone and that, you know, that period of my life where I was just getting way too comfortable. And it just didn't seem right, you know, and I want to achieve things. I want, you know, to have all these plans and whatnot. So, you know, it's just sometimes I think as much as we all are rooted into the positions we are in our lives, we have to kind of put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. But yeah, man, safe travels to you. Safe travels to you, Theo, and thank you so much for your time today, coming down and doing this podcast with us. Really appreciate it, man, and sharing all this wisdom and knowledge, brother.
The pleasure's mine, man. I love this.
so much to gain from this one, and this is definitely not going to be our last podcast. We're definitely going to do more in the future. And yeah, man, Theo, I hope to see you do big and great things again. Thank you very much, Theo, and we'll catch you soon.
Keep in touch.
And for guys who have been staying on this far, man, thank you so much for watching, listening, and I will see you guys on the next one. Oh.
Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you on the next one.